Episode 1, The Test. The hotel bathroom smelled faintly of bleach and lavender, the kind of sterile calm that made your skin prickle. Beyoncé stood over the sink, her hands gripping the cold marble edge, staring at the plastic stick balanced on the counter. Two pink lines glared back at her, sharp as a spotlight. Pregnant. The word hit like a bass drop, low and heavy, rattling her bones. She wasn't ready for this. Not now. Maybe not ever. Her reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger, eyes wide, lips parted, no trace of the woman who commanded arenas with a single glance. She'd been feeling off for weeks. Nausea in the mornings, a weird ache in her lower back, exhaustion that no amount of espresso could shake. She'd chalked it up to the tour grind, the endless cycle of rehearsals, interviews, and red-eye flights. But tonight, in this overpriced suite in Chicago, with her crew partying 3 floors down and Jay-Z halfway across the country working on his own projects, she'd finally caved and bought the test. Just to rule it out. Just to laugh at herself later for being paranoid. Except now the laugh was stuck in her throat, and all she could hear was the hum of the bathroom fan, mocking her with its steady drone. She sank onto the edge of the tub, her silk robe slipping off one shoulder. Her phone buzzed on the counter, Lila's name flashing across the screen. Probably checking if she needed anything before tomorrow's soundcheck. Beyoncé ignored it. She couldn't deal with Lila's chipper efficiency right now, not when her entire world felt like it was tilting off its axis. Pregnant. At the peak of her comeback. The album she'd poured 3 years into was dropping in 4 months. The tour was sold out. The world was watching, waiting for her to prove she was still the queen. And now this? A baby wasn't part of the plan. Not yet. Maybe not ever, if she was honest. She and Jay-Z had talked about it in vague terms, late-night whispers about someday, but someday wasn't supposed to be now. Her fingers traced the edge of the test, its cheap plastic suddenly the heaviest thing she'd ever held. She thought of Jay-Z, his easy grin, the way he'd wrap his arms around her after a long day and make the chaos feel manageable. He'd be thrilled, wouldn't he? He'd probably start planning a nursery before she could finish the sentence. But then what? The tabloids would pounce. Her teen would panic. The narrative she'd spent decades building, flawless, untouchable, would crack. She could already hear the headlines. Beyoncé's baby bombshell. Is her career over? And worse, the whispers. She's not ready to be a mom. She's too ambitious. She's selfish. The world loved to tear down women who dared to want it all. She stood abruptly, shoving the test into her makeup bag, burying it under lipsticks and brushes. No one could know. Not Jay-Z. Not her mom. Not even Solange, who could read her like a book and would probably call her out in 10 seconds flat. She'd figure this out alone. She always had. From the Destiny's Child days, when she was just a kid juggling school and stage lights, to the sleepless nights writing Lemonade, she'd carried her burdens in silence until they made sense. This would be no different. She'd keep moving, keep performing, keep smiling. The show always went on. The phone buzzed again, insistent. She sighed and picked it up, swiping the answer. "Hey, Lila, what's up?" Her voice came out smoother than she expected, like she hadn't just been staring down her own personal apocalypse. "Beyoncé, you okay? You didn't come down to the lounge, and I figured you might be crashed out, but I just wanted to check." Lila's voice was warm, tinged with that assistant's knack for sounding both professional and nosy. "I'm good. Just needed a minute. Long day, you know?" Beyoncé paced the bathroom, catching her reflection again. She forced a smile, practicing. "I'll be down for breakfast tomorrow. 7 sharp." "Cool, cool. Oh, and your mom called earlier. Said she's flying in for the New York show." Sounded excited. Lila paused, like she was waiting for a reaction. Beyoncé's stomach twisted. Tina was the last person she needed right now, with her eagle eyes and her way of asking questions that cut too deep. "Great. Thanks for the heads up. Night, Lila. She hung up before the conversation could stretch any further, her pulse hammering. Tina would see right through her. She always did. She moved to the bedroom, the city skyline glittering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Chicago sprawled below, oblivious to the storm brewing in her head. She tried to imagine telling Jay-Z, picturing his face, his voice. "Bae, this is dope. We got this." But what if he didn't say that? What if he looked at her differently, like she was fragile, like she was less? They'd built an empire together, but empires didn't leave room for weakness. And this, her body, her choice, her fear, felt like the weakest she'd ever been. A knock at the door snapped her out of it. Her heart lurched. Nobody was supposed to come up here. She tightened her robe and crossed the room, peering through the peephole. A hotel staffer stood there, holding a tray with a bottle of champagne and a note. She opened the door a crack. "I didn't order anything." The guy, young and nervous, shrugged. "Compliments of the house, ma'am. For your show tomorrow." He handed her the tray and scurried off before she could argue. She set it on the desk, eyeing the bottle like it was a snake. The note was typed, generic. To a legend. Break a leg. But something about it felt off, like it wasn't from the hotel at all. She flipped it over, half expecting a name, a clue. Nothing. Just her own paranoia creeping in. She poured the champagne down the sink, watching it fizz and vanish. No chances. Not tonight. She needed to stay sharp, to think. Tomorrow she'd be back in front of thousands, singing about strength and survival while hiding the biggest secret of her life. She'd need a plan. A doctor she could trust. A way to keep Lila from asking too many questions. A story to feed the world when her body started to betray her. Because it would. Sooner or later, someone would notice. A fan. A reporter. Jay-Z. The thought made her chest tighten, like the walls were closing in. Her phone lit up again, this time with a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations." That's all it said. No name, no context. Her breath caught, fingers hovering over the screen. She typed "Who is this?" but deleted it before sending. Instead, she turned the phone off, tossing it onto the bed like it burned her. Someone knew. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe it was a coincidence, a prank, a fan's weird way of hyping her up. But deep down, she felt it, a shadow moving just out of sight, watching her falter. She crawled into bed, pulling the covers tight, but sleep wouldn't come. The test was still in her bag, those 2 lines branding themselves into her memory. Tomorrow she'd wake up, put on her armor, and face the world like nothing had changed. But everything had. And as the city hummed outside, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Episode 2, The Facade. The morning hit like a slap, sunlight slicing through the hotel curtains and straight into Beyoncé's eyes. She groaned, rolling over, her stomach already churning before she remembered why. The test. Those 2 pink lines. Her secret, now a living thing, clawing at the edges of her mind. She lay still for a moment, listening to the faint hum of Chicago waking up outside, hoping the world might pause just long enough for her to catch her breath. No such luck. Her phone was already buzzing, a relentless reminder that the show never stopped, not even when her life was unraveling. She dragged herself out of bed, the silk sheets clinging to her legs like they knew she wasn't ready to face the day. The mirror showed a woman who looked too tired to be Beyoncé, with shadows under her eyes and a tightness in her jaw that no concealer could hide. She splashed cold water on her face, willing the fog to clear. Soundcheck was in 3 hours. A fan meet and greet after that. Then a performance for 20,000 people who expected her to be flawless. She could do this. She'd been faking it since she was 16, smiling through sore throats and scandals. This was just another stage. Her phone lit up with a text from Lila. "Car's ready at 10. You want coffee or smoothie today?" Beyoncé typed back, "Smoothie." "Thanks, Lila." She kept it short, normal, like nothing was wrong. Lila didn't need to know about the nausea that hit every time she thought about food, or the way her hands shook when she zipped up her makeup bag, double-checking that the test was still hidden. Nobody could know. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Downstairs, the hotel lobby was a circus. Her security team flanked her as she stepped out of the elevator, their faces blank but their eyes scanning every corner. Fans lingered behind velvet ropes, waving signs and screaming her name. She flashed a smile, the one she'd perfected years ago, bright enough to dazzle but not so wide it looked fake. A girl in a sparkly lemonade shirt thrust a bouquet of roses toward her, and Beyoncé took them, murmuring thanks, her voice steady even as her pulse raced. She felt exposed, like those two lines were tattooed across her forehead for everyone to see. In the car, Lila was all business, scrolling through her tablet with one hand and passing Beyoncé a green smoothie with the other. "Morning, Beyoncé. You're looking fierce already." Lila's grin was infectious, but today it grated, too cheerful for the storm brewing inside her boss. "Just doing my thing," Beyoncé said, sipping the smoothie and praying it stayed down. She glanced out the window, watching the city blur past, all steel and glass and people who didn't know her secret. "What's the vibe for tonight? Crowd hyped?" "Oh, they're losing it. Sold out in 10 minutes, and the resale tickets are going for thousands. You're gonna kill it." Lila's eyes flicked up from her tablet, lingering a second too long. "You sure you're good? You seem quiet." Beyoncé forced a laugh, light and easy. "Girl, I'm just saving my energy for the stage. You know how it goes." She turned away, pretending to check her phone, but Lila's question hung in the air. Quiet. Was she? She'd always been good at keeping her cards close, but now every word, every glance, felt like a potential slip. She needed to be sharper, tighter, untouchable. The venue was a hive of chaos when they arrived. Roadies hauled equipment, dancers stretched in the wings, and her stylist fussed over a rack of glittering costumes. Beyoncé moved through it all like she was gliding, nodding at the right moments, laughing when someone cracked a joke. But her mind was elsewhere, replaying that text from last night. Congratulations. It had to be a coincidence. A fan, maybe, or a glitch. But the unease lingered, a splinter she couldn't dig out. Soundcheck went smooth, her voice soaring through the empty arena, every note crisp despite the knot in her chest. She caught a glimpse of herself on the monitor, all power and poise, and for a second, she believed the lie. She was still Beyoncé, still in control. Then her phone buzzed in her pocket, and her stomach dropped. She ignored it, focusing on the mic, the rhythm, the crew watching her like she was a god. But when she stepped off stage, she couldn't resist. She slipped into a corner and checked the screen. Another unknown number. "You can't hide forever." Her breath hitched, fingers freezing over the reply button. She deleted the message, her heart pounding like a bass line. The meet and greet was worse. Fans gushed, cried, hugged her too tight. She smiled through it, signing posters and posing for selfies, but every touch felt like a violation, every camera a threat. One guy, a skinny dude with a press badge, hung back, scribbling in a notebook. She didn't recognize him, but his stare was too sharp, like he was looking for something specific. She made a mental note to ask Lila about him later. Probably just a blogger, but still. She couldn't afford loose ends. By the time she got to the evening's gala, a glitzy fundraiser thrown by some music exec, she was running on fumes. The ballroom was a sea of sequins and fake laughs, everyone chasing clout or a deal. Beyoncé wore a gold gown that hugged her curves just right, no hint of the secret beneath. She worked the room, all charm and grace, but her eyes kept darting to the exits, the shadows, anywhere someone might be watching. At the bar, she ordered a sparkling water, waving off the waiter's offer of champagne with a playful, "Gotta keep my voice pure tonight." He chuckled, but across the room, Tina's head tilted, her mom's intuition kicking in. Beyoncé felt it like a spotlight, Tina's gaze cutting through the crowd. They hadn't talked since last week, just quick texts about the tour. Now Tina was here, gliding toward her with that warm, knowing smile that always made Beyoncé feel like a kid again. "Beyoncé, baby, you look stunning," Tina said, pulling her into a hug. Her perfume was familiar, grounding, but it only made Beyoncé's chest tighter. "You holding up okay? This tour's a beast." "I'm good, mama. Just keeping the hustle tight." Beyoncé kissed her cheek, dodging Tina's eyes. "You know me. Always moving." Tina's smile didn't waver, but her brow creased, just a fraction. You sure? You've got that look, like you're carrying the world again." She paused, waiting, giving Beyoncé space to spill. Beyoncé's throat went dry. She wanted to tell her, to let it all pour out, the fear, the test, the texts. But she couldn't. "Not here, not now, maybe not ever." "Just tired," she said, forcing a grin. "Nothing a good night's sleep won't fix." Tina nodded, but the crease in her brow didn't fade. "You know you can talk to me, right?" "Always." "Always," Beyoncé echoed, her voice softer than she meant. She excused herself, claiming she needed to mingle, and slipped into the crowd before Tina could press harder. Most mocking. "Name's Marcus. Big fan." She nodded, her guard up, every instinct screaming to walk away. "Thanks, Marcus. Enjoy the party." She brushed past him, her heart racing, his stare burning into her back. He wasn't just a fan. She could feel it. And as she rejoined the gala, pasting on her smile, she knew the facade was cracking, just a little. Tonight, she'd perform, dazzle, survive. But tomorrow? Tomorrow, she'd need a better mask. Later, as she stood on a balcony overlooking the city, the gala's noise fading behind her, she felt the weight settle deeper. She'd dodged Tina, dodged Lila, dodged the truth. But it wasn't enough. Someone was out there, watching, waiting for her to slip. She pulled out her phone, the screen cold against her palm. No new texts, but the silence felt louder than any message. Below, the street pulsed with life, cars and strangers and secrets of their own. She heard footsteps behind her, too deliberate to be casual. She turned, expecting Tina or Lila, but it was the guy from the meet and greet, the one with the notebook. He smiled, thin and sharp, like he knew something she didn't. "Great night, huh, Beyoncé," he said, his voice smooth. Episode 3, The Doctor. The arena's roar still echoed in Beyoncé's ears as she slipped out the back exit, the night air sharp against her sweat-damp skin. The show had been electric, 20,000 voices screaming her name, their energy a drug that almost drowned out the secret gnawing at her. Almost. She danced harder, sung louder, poured every ounce of herself into the performance to keep the truth at bay. But now, in the quiet of the Chicago streets, with her crew loading gear into vans and fans still chanting somewhere in the distance, the weight was back. Those two pink lines. The texts. Marcus's smile, too knowing, too close. She needed answers, a plan, someone she could trust. And fast. The car was waiting, a sleek black SUV with tinted windows, her driver nodding as she climbed in. Lila was already inside, tapping away on her tablet, oblivious to the storm brewing in Beyoncé's head. "Beyoncé, you killed it tonight. Twitter's losing its mind. They're calling it your best show yet." Lila's voice was bright, but her eyes flicked up, catching Beyoncé's silence. "You good? Need anything?" "Just a quiet ride," Beyoncé said, forcing a smile that felt like lifting weights. "Long night." She leaned back, closing her eyes, but the darkness only sharpened her thoughts. She couldn't keep dodging Lila's questions forever. Or Tina's. Or Jay-Z's, when he finally noticed she was pulling away. She needed to get ahead of this, to lock it down before it spilled out. That meant finding a doctor. Someone discreet, someone who wouldn't blink at a celebrity hiding a pregnancy. Someone who could keep their mouth shut. She'd done her research last night, after the gala, when sleep refused to come. A few careful searches on her private browser, names and reviews sifted through like clues in a detective novel. One name kept popping up, Dr. Ellis, a low-profile OBGYN with a practice an hour outside Chicago. No flashy website, no social media, just a reputation for privacy and a client list rumored to include politicians and athletes. Perfect. She'd called at dawn, using a burner app to mask her number, and booked an appointment for this morning. No assistant, no paper trail. Just her, alone, taking control. The drive to the clinic felt endless, the city giving way to suburbs, then to quiet roads lined with trees turning gold in the fall light. Beyoncé wore a hoodie and oversized sunglasses, her hair tucked under a baseball cap. She looked like any other woman running errands, or so she hoped. The driver dropped her at a coffee shop a block from the clinic, per her instructions. She walked the rest, her sneakers soft against the pavement, her pulse loud in her ears. Every passing car felt like a threat, every stranger a pair of eyes waiting to recognize her. The clinic was a plain brick building, tucked between a pharmacy and a dry cleaner, its signs so small you'd miss it if you weren't looking. Inside, the waiting room smelled of antiseptic and old magazines, with faded chairs and a fish tank bubbling in the corner. A receptionist glanced up, her face bored, and handed Beyoncé a clipboard without a second look. "Fill this out. Dr. Ellis will be with you soon." Beyoncé nodded, scribbling a fake name, Sarah Jones, and checking boxes with half-truths. No allergies. No surgeries. No one to notify in an emergency. Her pen hesitated over the last question, reason for visit? She wrote routine checkup, her hand steady even as her stomach twisted. Dr. Ellis's office was warmer than the waiting room, with soft lighting and a desk cluttered with photos of kids and dogs. He was older than she'd expected, maybe 60, with gray hair and a calm smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Sarah, right?" he said, glancing at her chart, his voice low and deliberate. "What brings you in today?" Beyoncé hesitated, her fingers knotting in her lap. She'd rehearsed this, but the words felt heavy, like confessing a crime. "I'm pregnant," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I took a test. I need to know what's next. And I need it to stay private. Completely private." Dr. Ellis leaned back, his chair creaking, his gaze steady but not judgmental. "Congratulations," he said, and Beyoncé flinched, the word too close to that anonymous text. He noticed, his brow furrowing slightly. "Or maybe not. That's okay. We can talk about your options. Privacy's no issue here. I've been doing this a long time." She studied him, searching for a crack, a hint of greed or curiosity. But he seemed solid, like a man who'd seen too much to be fazed. "I mean it," she said, leaning forward. "No records. No leaks. I can't have anyone knowing. Not my family, not nobody." She stopped short of saying husband, the word too raw, too real. "Understood," Ellis said, his tone even. "We'll keep this off the books. Cash payment, no digital trail. I'll do the exam myself, no nurses. You're safe here." He paused, his eyes narrowing just a fraction. "But you should know, keeping secrets like this, it's heavy. You sure you're ready for that?" Beyoncé's jaw tightened. She wasn't sure of anything, but she didn't have a choice. "I'm ready," she said, the lie tasting bitter. "Let's just get this done." The exam was quick, clinical, Ellis's hands steady as he confirmed what she already knew. 8 weeks along. Healthy so far. He gave her a rundown, vitamins, rest, warning signs to watch for, but his voice faded into static as her mind raced. 8 weeks. That meant it happened during the LA trip, those rare nights when she and Jay-Z stole time together between their chaos. She tried to picture his face if she told him, but all she saw was Marcus at the gala, his notebook, his smirk. And those texts, taunting her from nowhere. Ellis handed her a bottle of prenatals, his expression unreadable. "You've got my number if you need me. Day or night." "But Beyoncé," he paused, and her heart stopped, hearing her real name. "I've worked with people like you before. The ones who carry the world. Secrets don't stay buried forever. Be careful who you trust. She froze, her hand on the door. How'd you know my name? Her voice was sharp, edged with panic. Ellis didn't flinch. I've been around. You're not my first VIP. Don't worry, my lips are sealed. But there was something in his tone, a flicker of something deeper, like he knew more than he was letting on. She wanted to push, to demand answers, but the clock was ticking. Lila would be asking questions soon, and Jay-Z was due to call after his studio session. She left the clinic in a daze, the prenatals heavy in her pocket. The walk back to the coffee shop felt longer, the air colder. She kept her head down, but she couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on her. A car slowed as it passed, its windows too dark to see through. Probably nothing. Probably her nerves. But when she reached the SUV and slid inside, her phone buzzed. She checked it, her breath catching. A photo, grainy but unmistakable, her, leaving the clinic, cap pulled low. No text, no number, just the image, like a warning shot. Lila, she said, her voice tight as she tucked the phone away. Change of plans. I need to get to New York tonight. No stops. Lila frowned, already pulling up the schedule. Beyoncé, we've got press here tomorrow. You sure? I'm sure. She leaned back, her mind spinning. Ellis knew her name. Someone had her photo. The walls were closing in, and Jay-Z was waiting, his texts piling up, full of love she wasn't sure she could return. Not like this. Not with a secret this big, and a shadow this close. Episode 4, The Slip. The New York skyline glittered like a promise, but Beyoncé felt no comfort as the SUV rolled through Manhattan's late-night streets. Her phone sat heavy in her lap, that grainy photo of her leaving the clinic burned into her mind. Someone was watching. Someone knew. She deleted the image, blocked the number, but the damage was done. Her secret, the one she'd barely begun to carry, was already slipping through her fingers. She pressed her forehead against the cool window, willing her pulse to slow. She'd made it through Chicago, through the show, through Tina's questions and Marcus's stare. She could make it through this. She had to. Lila sat across from her, scrolling through emails, oblivious to the storm brewing in Beyoncé's head. Beyoncé, I got us on a red-eye back to LA tomorrow night, after the press junket. Sound good? Lila's voice was all business, her fingers flying over her tablet. Yeah, fine, Beyoncé said, her tone clipped. She caught Lila's quick glance, that flicker of concern, and softened her voice. Thanks, Lila. You're a lifesaver. She needed Lila on her side, not asking questions. Not yet. But the weight of every lie was piling up, each one a brick in a wall she wasn't sure she could hold. The hotel suite was a sanctuary, all plush carpets and city views, but it felt more like a cage tonight. Beyoncé kicked off her sneakers, her body aching from the performance and the tension she'd been carrying since the test. She checked her phone again, half expecting another anonymous message. Nothing. Just a string of texts from Jay-Z, sweet and casual, asking how the show went, saying he'd be in New York by morning. Her chest tightened. She wanted to call him, to hear his voice, to let it ground her. But what would she say? Hey, Jai, I'm pregnant and freaking out, and oh, someone's stalking me? No. She typed back a quick killed it. Miss you. Night. And hit send before she could overthink it. A knock at the door made her jump. She froze, her heart thudding. It was late, past midnight. Nobody should be here. She crossed the room, peering through the peephole. Solange stood outside, her arms crossed, a familiar mix of impatience and love on her face. Beyoncé's stomach sank. Solange wasn't planned. Solange didn't do pop-ins without a reason. She opened the door, forcing a smile. Solange, what's good? You just show up now, no warning? Her voice was light, teasing, but her hands were clammy. Solange breezed past her, dropping her bag on the couch. Beyoncé, Don't act like you're surprised. I'm in town for a shoot, figured I'd crash your fancy hotel life for a minute. She grinned, but her eyes were sharp, scanning Beyoncé like she could see through her skin. You look beat, sis. Tour kicking your ass? Something like that, Beyoncé said, shutting the door and leaning against it, buying time. Solange was too good at this, at sniffing out cracks in her armor. They'd always been close, two sides of the same fire, but right now, that closeness felt dangerous. You want a drink? Room service is 24/7. Nah, I'm good. Solange flopped onto the couch, kicking off her boots. Just wanted to see you. Been a minute. You've been weird. Quiet, even for you. She tilted her head, her braids catching the light. What's up, bae? For real. Beyoncé's throat tightened. She busied herself at the minibar, grabbing a water she didn't want, anything to avoid Solange's gaze. Just the grind, you know? Albums dropping soon, tours nonstop. I'm stretched thin. It wasn't a lie, not entirely, but it felt flimsy, like tissue paper over a storm. Solange didn't buy it. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees. Beyoncé, come on. I know you. You're out here dodging calls, looking like you're carrying a ghost. Talk to me. Her voice softened, the edge giving way to worry. Is it Jai? The label? What? Beyoncé's fingers tightened around the water bottle, the plastic crinkling. She wanted to spill it all, to let Solange's fire burn away her fear. But she couldn't. Not when she didn't even know who was watching, who'd sent that photo. It's nothing, Solange. I'm good. Promise. The words tasted like ash, but she held her sister's gaze, willing her to let it go. Solange sighed, leaning back. Fine. Keep your secrets. But I'm not blind, and I'm not going anywhere. She paused, then smirked, lightening the mood. Heard you shut down Chicago, though. They're calling it iconic already. Beyoncé laughed, grateful for the shift. You know I don't play small. They fell into easier talk, reminiscing about old tours, laughing over Solange's latest feud with a pushy stylist. But the whole time, Beyoncé felt the secret pulsing between them, a third presence in the room. The next morning, chaos took over. The press junket was a blur of cameras and questions, Beyoncé dodging the usual traps. What's next for the album? Any collabs with Jay-Z, with her trademark charm? Lila hovered nearby, managing the schedule, but Beyoncé caught her whispering to a staffer, something about a mix-up with the Chicago hotel bill. Her stomach twisted. A mix-up could mean anything. A leaked receipt. A nosy clerk. She made a mental note to check with Lila later, to make sure nothing traced back to her. At lunch, Solange joined her at the hotel restaurant, still in town, still watching too closely. Beyoncé stuck to salad, claiming she was clean eating for the tour, but Solange's eyes narrowed when she waved off wine. Since when do you pass on a good rose, Beyoncé? Solange teased, but there was an edge to it, like she was piecing something together. Gotta keep it tight, Beyoncé said, shrugging, but her laugh sounded forced, even to her. She changed the subject, asking about Solange's shoot, and her sister let it slide. For now. The Real slip came later, back at the suite. Lila was there, unpacking Beyoncé's luggage, when Solange stopped by again, unannounced, with coffee and gossip. They were laughing over some viral meme when Lila, sorting through a bag, pulled out the bottle of prenatals Dr. Ellis had given Beyoncé. Beyoncé, you want these in the bathroom or? Lila froze, the label clear in her hand, her eyes darting to Solange, then back to Beyoncé. The room went silent, the air thick with what wasn't said. Solange's coffee cup paused halfway to her mouth, her brows lifting. Prenatals? Beyoncé, what's that about? Her voice was casual, but her eyes were locked on her sister, sharp as a blade. Beyoncé's heart slammed against her ribs. She snatched the bottle from Lila, her smile tight. Just some vitamins, Solange. You know, tour life. Gotta stay on top of my health. She stuffed the bottle into her purse, her hands shaking, praying Lila wouldn't say more. Lila's face was blank, but her silence screamed. She knew. Or she suspected. Beyoncé shot her a look, a warning, and Lila busied herself with the luggage, muttering about a call she had to make. Solange wasn't fooled, though. She set her coffee down, leaning forward. Vitamins, huh? Looked like something else to me. Solange, drop it, Beyoncé said, sharper than she meant. It's nothing. You're reading too much into it. She stood, grabbing her phone, needing to move, to escape. I've got a meeting. Catch you later? Solange didn't argue, but her stare followed Beyoncé out the door, heavy with questions. In the elevator, Beyoncé leaned against the wall, her breath ragged. Lila's slip had cracked the facade, and Solange was too stubborn to let it go. Worse, Lila knew something now, and Beyoncé wasn't sure she could trust her to stay quiet. Her phone buzzed as the elevator doors opened. Another text, another unknown number. Careful, Beyoncé. Secrets don't keep when you're sloppy. Her blood ran cold. She scanned the lobby, half expecting to see Marcus or some faceless shadow, but it was just bellhops and tourists, oblivious to her panic. She stepped outside, the city's noise swallowing her, and felt a new kind of fear. Someone wasn't just watching. They were closing in. Episode 5, The Distance. The New York air was crisp, biting at Beyoncé's cheeks as she stepped out of the hotel, her hoodie pulled low and her sunglasses doing their best to shield her from the world. The city pulsed around her, all honking cabs and hurried strangers, but she felt untethered, like she was floating above it all, watching her life unravel from a distance. The prenatal bottle was still in her purse, a ticking bomb after Lila's slip. Solange's questions echoed in her head, sharp and relentless, and that latest text, careful, Beyoncé. Secrets don't keep when you're sloppy, sat like a stone in her gut. She needed to move, to think, to outrun the shadow that seemed to follow her every step. She'd told Lila to cancel. System, apologies, it looks like your message got cut off, and I notice I've started the chapter prematurely. Since you've asked me to continue with episode 5, I'll proceed with writing it based on the established plan in your prompt, ensuring it meets all your requirements, a minimum of 8,000 characters, no dashes, smooth text for neural network narration, stress marks and dialogue for accurate pronunciation, and maintaining the tone, intrigue, and emotional depth of the story. I'll focus on the distance, escalating the tension between Beyoncé and Jay-Z, testing Lila's loyalty, and introducing the mysterious package, all while keeping the cliffhanger sharp. Here's the full chapter. Episode 5, The Distance. The New York air was crisp, biting at Beyoncé's cheeks as she stepped out of the hotel, her hoodie pulled low and her sunglasses doing their best to shield her from the world. The city pulsed around her, all honking cabs and hurried strangers, but she felt untethered, like she was floating above it all, watching her life unravel from a distance. The prenatal bottle was still in her purse, a ticking bomb after Lila's slip yesterday. Solange's questions echoed in her head, sharp and relentless, and that latest text, careful, Beyoncé. Secrets don't keep when you're sloppy, sat like a stone in her gut. She needed to move, to think, to outrun the shadow that seemed to follow her every step. She'd told Lila she was grabbing coffee, a lie to buy herself an hour alone before the press junket. Lila had nodded, her face unreadable, but Beyoncé caught the flicker in her eyes, the same one from when she'd held up those prenatals in front of Solange. Doubt. Curiosity. Maybe something worse. Beyoncé couldn't shake the feeling that Lila was holding something back, and it made her skin crawl. She'd trusted Lila for years, her schedules, her secrets, her life, but now every glance felt like a question she couldn't answer. The coffee shop was crowded, a buzz of laptops and chatter that swallowed her as she slipped inside. She ordered a decaf, muttering her fake name, Sarah, to the barista, and tucked herself into a corner booth. Her phone sat face down on the table, silent but heavy, like it might burn her if she touched it. She hadn't told Jay-Z she was back in New York. He thought she was still in Chicago, wrapping up press. Another lie, piling up with the rest. She missed him, the way his laugh could pull her back from the edge, but every time she thought about calling, her secret stopped her cold. How do you tell the man you love that you're carrying his child and terrified of it? That someone's watching you, maybe because of it? She sipped the coffee, bitter and useless without the caffeine she craved. Her eyes scanned the room, habit now, looking for Marcus or anyone else who didn't belong. Nobody stood out, just hipsters in suits, but the unease lingered. She pulled her hoodie tighter, her fingers brushing the prenatals in her purse. She should have ditched them, tossed them in a dumpster somewhere, but they were proof, a tether to the truth she wasn't ready to face. 8 weeks. Dr. Ellis's voice played in her head, calm but edged with something she couldn't place. Secrets don't stay buried forever. He'd known her name. How? She hadn't figured that out, and it gnawed at her, another loose thread in a life that was starting to fray. Back at the hotel, the lobby was chaos, paparazzi lurking outside, fans waving signs, her security team barking orders. She slipped through a side entrance, avoiding the circus, but ran straight into Jay-Z. He was leaning against a wall, arms crossed, his grin wide but his eyes searching. Her heart lurched. He wasn't supposed to be here yet. Beyoncé, you sneaking in like a thief, he teased, pulling her into a hug. His warmth was familiar, grounding, but it only made her secret feel sharper, like a blade against her skin. Thought you were still in Chicago. Lila said you flew in early. She froze, her smile faltering. Lila. Why would she tell him that? Yeah, wrapped up quicker than I thought, she said, easing out of his arms, her voice too tight. Wanted to surprise you. Another lie, and she saw it land, his brow twitching just enough to notice. Surprise, huh? You're full of those lately. He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. He slung an arm around her, steering her toward the elevator. Come on, let's chill before your junket. Been too long since we just kicked it. In the suite, Jay-Z sprawled on the couch, flipping through channels, while Beyoncé paced, pretending to check emails. The prenatals were still in her purse, now on the desk, too close for comfort. She felt his eyes on her, not pushy but steady, like he was waiting for her to crack. They'd always had this rhythm, a way of reading each other without words, but now it felt like static, signals crossed. She wanted to crawl into his lap, tell him everything, the test, the texts, the fear, but the words wouldn't come. Not when she didn't know who was watching, or why. You been quiet, bae, he said finally, muting the TV. His voice was soft, but it carried weight, like he'd been holding it in. Tour's wild, I get it, but something's off. You shutting me out? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his gaze locking onto hers. Her throat tightened, the room suddenly too small. Jai, I'm just tired, she said, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow. You know how it is. Deadlines, crowds, all that noise. She moved to the window, staring at the city to avoid his eyes. I'm good. Promise. He didn't buy it. She heard him stand, his footsteps heavy as he crossed the room. Beyoncé, come on. We don't do this. You don't hide from me. His hand grazed her shoulder, gentle but firm, turning her to face him. What's going on? For real. Panic flared, hot and sharp. She couldn't tell him. Not now, not like this, with Lila's slip and Solange's suspicions and some faceless creep sending photos. But his face, open, worried, hers, made her waver. It's nothing, Jai, she said, her voice cracking. Just pressure. The album, the tour. I'm in my head, okay? She pulled away, her hands shaking. I need space to breathe. His jaw tightened, hurt flashing in his eyes. Space? Bae, we're married. Space is what we give other people, not each other. He stepped closer, his voice low, raw. You think I don't see you pulling back? Staying out late, dodging calls? I'm right here, and you're acting like I'm the enemy. Her chest caved, guilt mixing with fear. You're not, she whispered, but it came out wrong, weak, like she was pleading. I can't right now, Jai. Please. She turned away, tears burning, hating herself for pushing him out when all she wanted was to pull him close. He didn't follow. "Aight," he said, his voice flat, final. "You need space, you got it. But don't expect me to wait forever, Beyoncé." The door clicked shut behind him, soft but deafening, leaving her alone with the echo of her own lies. She sank onto the couch, her breath ragged, the fight replaying like a bad song. She'd pushed him too far, and now the distance between them felt like a chasm. Her phone buzzed, snapping her back. A text from Lila, "Package for you at the front desk. Want me to grab it?" Beyoncé's pulse spiked. A package. Out of nowhere, after everything else. "No," she typed back, her fingers clumsy. "I'll get it." Downstairs, the clerk handed her a small padded envelope, no return address, just her name scrawled in Sharpie. Her hands trembled as she tore it open in the elevator. Inside was a single ultrasound photo, grainy but clear, not hers but close enough to make her stomach drop. No note, no explanation, just the image, taunting her. Someone wasn't just watching, they were playing with her, twisting the knife. Back in the suite, she stuffed the envelope under a stack of magazines, her mind racing. Lila had known about the package. Had she seen it? Was she part of this? Beyoncé's trust, already thin, was fraying faster. She thought of calling Dr. Ellis, demanding answers about who he'd told, but his warning stopped her. Be careful who you trust. She thought of Solange, Tina, even Jay-Z, all of them too close, too dangerous to confide in now. Her phone lit up again, another unknown number. "You can run, but you can't hide, Beyoncé." She stared at it, her breath shallow, the words blurring through tears she refused to let fall. The junket was in an hour. She had to perform, smile, lie to the world while it closed in around her. But as she stood, wiping her face, she felt something shift, fear hardening into resolve. Whoever this was, they didn't know her. They didn't know what she was capable of. Not yet. Episode 6, The Leak. The press junket was a blur of flashing cameras and recycled questions, each one chipping away at Beyoncé's carefully built armor. She sat on a sleek leather chair, her smile polished to a shine, answering the same tired prompts about her album, her tour, her legacy. "What's the vibe of this new record, Beyoncé? Any surprises up your sleeve?" She laughed on cue, tossed her hair, gave them just enough sparkle to keep them fed. But inside, she was unraveling, her mind stuck on that ultrasound photo tucked under magazines in her suite, the anonymous texts piling up like threats. "You can run, but you can't hide." The words looped in her head, louder than the reporter droning on about her choreography. Lila hovered in the corner, her tablet glowing, her face a mask of efficiency. Beyoncé caught her glancing over, not quite meeting her eyes, and the knot in her stomach tightened. Lila had known about the package. Had she seen what was inside? Was she texting someone now, spilling secrets Beyoncé hadn't even shared with Jay-Z? The fight with him last night still stung, his words, "Don't expect me to wait forever," cutting deeper than she'd let herself feel. She'd pushed him away to protect her secret, but now she was alone, surrounded by people she couldn't trust, not even herself. The junket wrapped, and Beyoncé slipped into a hallway, craving a moment to breathe. Her phone buzzed, and her heart sank. Another unknown number. She almost ignored it, but her thumb swiped open the message before she could stop herself. A link, no text. Against her better judgment, she clicked. It loaded a gossip site, one of those sleazy corners of the internet that thrived on half-truths. The headline screamed, "Beyoncé's big secret, what's she hiding?" Her breath caught. The article was vague, no photos, just speculation about her erratic behavior and sudden schedule changes. Sources close to the star say she's been distant, dodging questions, even from her inner circle. It hinted at something personal, something big, but stopped short of naming it. For now. She deleted the link, her hands shaking. It wasn't proof. Not yet. But it was close, too close, like a predator circling just out of sight. She scanned the hallway, half expecting Marcus to pop up, notebook in hand, but it was just crew members and a janitor mopping the floor. Still, she felt exposed, like every camera in the building was trained on her, waiting for a crack. She needed to talk to Dr. Ellis, to figure out if he'd slipped, if he'd told someone her real name. But calling him now, from here, felt too risky. She'd wait until she was back in LA, somewhere she could lock the door and think. Back at the hotel, the suite felt colder, the city skyline outside more mocking than majestic. Jay-Z hadn't texted since their fight, and the silence was louder than any argument. She wanted to call him, to fix it, but the ultrasound photo stopped her. If he knew, if anyone knew, this whole mess would explode. She sank onto the couch, her purse spilling open, the prenatal bottle rolling out like an accusation. She shoved it back in, her fingers brushing the envelope with the ultrasound. She should have burned it, but something made her keep it, like holding on to evidence in a crime she hadn't committed. Yet. Lila knocked, then poked her head in, her smile too bright. "Beyoncé, you need anything? I'm grabbing food before we head to the airport." Her voice was casual, but her eyes lingered on the purse, like she knew what was inside. "I'm good, Lila," Beyoncé said, her tone sharper than she meant. "Just, give me some space, okay? I'll meet you downstairs." Lila nodded, but there was a pause, a beat too long, before she left. Beyoncé's stomach twisted. Was Lila playing her? Or was she just paranoid, seeing betrayal in every shadow? She couldn't tell anymore, and that scared her more than the texts. Her phone rang, snapping her out of it. Tina's name flashed on the screen, and Beyoncé's heart sank. She couldn't dodge her mom forever, not after blowing her off at the gala. She answered, forcing warmth into her voice. "Hey, Mama. What's up?" "Beyoncé, you sound like you're running a marathon," Tina said, her tone half teasing, half worried. "You okay, baby? I saw you at that gala, dodging me like I was the IRS. And now Solange's texting me, saying you're acting weird. What's going on?" Beyoncé's throat tightened. Solange had gone to Tina? Of course she had. Her sister never let anything slide. "I'm fine, Mama. Just busy. Tour's kicking my butt, that's all." She paced the room, her reflection flickering in the windows, a ghost of herself. Solange just being dramatic. Tina hummed, unconvinced. You know I don't buy that. You're my girl, Beyoncé. I feel it when something's off. You sure you don't want to talk?" Her voice was soft, a lifeline, but Beyoncé couldn't grab it. "Not now." "I'm sure," she said, her voice cracking despite herself. "I'll call you soon, okay? Love you." She hung up before Tina could push, her chest aching. Lying to her mom felt like betraying a part of herself, but the truth was a luxury she couldn't afford. She was about to head downstairs when her laptop pinged, an email notification popping up. No subject, no sender name, just a blank address. Her pulse spiked. She opened it, against every instinct screaming to delete it. A single line, "Check the news tonight." Attached was another photo, this one clearer, showing her leaving Ellis's clinic, her cap low but her face unmistakable. Her breath stopped. This wasn't just a warning anymore. This was a move. She slammed the laptop shut, her hands trembling. The news. Tonight. She flicked on the TV, flipping to a gossip channel, her heart pounding. Nothing yet, just celebrity fluff and fashion recaps. But the threat was real. Someone was out there, not just watching but orchestrating, leaking just enough to keep her scrambling. Marcus? Lila? Ellis himself? She didn't know, and the not knowing was eating her alive. A knock at the door made her jump. "Beyoncé?" "It's me." Lila's voice, muffled but urgent. Beyoncé hesitated, her hand hovering over the knob. She didn't want to face Lila, not with that photo burning a hole in her mind, but she couldn't hide forever. She opened the door, her face a mask. Lila held a takeout bag, her smile faltering. Thought you might be hungry after all. Also, there's something you should see. She pulled out her phone, showing a tweet from some low-rent gossip account. Trouble in paradise for Beyoncé and Jay-Z? Sources say she's been distant, hiding something big. No details, but the timing was too perfect, too close to the email. Beyoncé's blood ran cold. Where'd you find this, Lila? Her voice was low, dangerous, searching for a crack in Lila's story. It's blowing up online, Lila said, her eyes wide, too innocent. I just thought you should know before it gets worse. You want me to get the PR team on it? Beyoncé stared at her, every instinct screaming to call her out, to demand if she'd leaked something, anything. But she couldn't. Not without proof. Yeah, she said finally, her voice flat. Handle it. And Lila? Don't tell Jay-Z. I'll deal with him. Lila nodded, but as she turned to leave, Beyoncé caught a glance at her phone screen, a text, half visible, from a number she didn't recognize. Tell her to check. The rest was cut off, but it was enough to make her stomach drop. She shut the door, her mind racing. Lila was involved. Or someone was using her. Either way, the walls were closing in, and Jay-Z was waiting, his silence louder than any tabloid. She sank onto the bed, the TV still droning, promising news that could ruin her. The ultrasound photo was still upstairs, the prenatals in her purse, her secret teetering on the edge of exposure. She needed to move faster, to find out who was behind this before they struck again. Because they would. And next time, they might not stop at hints. Episode 7, The Ally. The hotel suite felt like a trap, the walls too close, the city outside too loud. Beyoncé sat on the edge of the bed, her phone dark but heavy in her hand, the gossip tweet Lila showed her still burning in her mind. Trouble in paradise? Hiding something big? It was vague enough to be brushed off, but the timing, right after that email, that photo of her leaving Ellis's clinic, made it feel like a warning shot. Someone was out there, pulling strings, and she was running out of time to figure out who. Jay-Z's silence since their fight was a wound she couldn't touch, and Lila's half-seen text, tell her to check, had her questioning every move her assistant made. She needed an ally, someone to help her hold the pieces together, but trust was a currency she could barely afford. She stood, pacing to the window, New York's lights blurring into streaks of gold and white. Solange's face flashed in her mind, her sister's sharp eyes and sharper tongue. Solange had been circling the truth since the prenatal slip, asking questions Beyoncé couldn't answer. But Solange was family, blood, the one person who'd always had her back, even when they fought. Maybe it was time to let her in, just a little, to keep her close before she dug too deep on her own. The thought scared her. Solange didn't do half measures, but it scared her less than facing this alone. Her phone buzzed, snapping her back. A text from Solange, in town one more night. Dinner? I'm not taking no. Beyoncé's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. Typical Solange, pushing her way in whether invited or not. She typed back, fine. My sweet, 7. Bring wine. She wouldn't drink, but the gesture would keep things normal, keep Solange from sniffing out more than she already had. By 7, the suite smelled of takeout, spicy noodles and dumplings from a spot Solange loved. Beyoncé had changed into sweats, her hair loose, trying to look like she wasn't carrying a bomb in her chest. Solange breezed in, a bottle of rose in one hand, her energy filling the room like a spark. Beyoncé, you look like you need this more than me, she said, setting the wine down and pulling her into a hug. Her grip was tight, like she could feel the cracks in her sister's facade. Girl, I'm good, Beyoncé said, easing back with a laugh that felt forced. Just hungry. You better not have gotten the spicy ones again. She busied herself with plates, dodging Solange's eyes, but her sister was already watching, head tilted, like she was solving a puzzle. They ate on the couch, the TV on low, some reality show neither of them cared about. Solange talked fast, her shoot, a shady director, a new track she was working on, but her glances kept landing on Beyoncé, heavy with unspoken questions. Beyoncé picked at her food, her stomach too knotted to eat much, praying Solange wouldn't notice. But Solange always noticed. "Beyoncé, you're not eating," Solange said finally, setting her chopsticks down. Her voice was light, but her eyes were serious, cutting through the small talk. "And you're dodging me. Again. What's up with you? Don't give me that tour exhaustion crap." Beyoncé's fork froze halfway to her mouth. She wanted to lie, to deflect, but Solange's stare was a wall she couldn't climb. Her sister had always been her mirror, reflecting truths she wasn't ready to face. Maybe it was time to let her in, just enough to keep her from digging on her own. "Solange," she started, her voice low, "it's complicated. I'm dealing with some stuff. Personal stuff." Solange leaned forward, her braids swinging. "Personal how?" "Beyoncé, you're scaring me. Is it Jai? Did he do something?" Her tone was fierce, protective, ready to fight anyone who'd hurt her sister. "No, it's not Jai," Beyoncé said quickly, her chest tightening at his name. Their fight still stung, his absence louder than ever. "It's me. I'm just in over my head, okay? I can't talk about it yet. But I need you to trust me." She met Solange's eyes, pleading, willing her to back off. Solange didn't budge. "Trust you?" "Beyoncé, I do. But you're shutting everyone out, Tina, Jai, me. And don't think I forgot those pills Lila pulled out. Vitamins, my ass." She softened, reaching for Beyoncé's hand. "Whatever it is, you don't have to carry it alone. Let me help." Beyoncé's throat burned, tears threatening to spill. She squeezed Solange's hand, the warmth grounding her, but the truth stayed locked inside. She couldn't risk it, not with those texts, that ultrasound, the leak circling like a shark. Instead, she gave her sister a half-truth, the safest piece she could. "I'm figuring out some health stuff, Solange. Nothing crazy, just private. I'll tell you when I'm ready, I swear." Solange studied her, searching for the lie, but she nodded, slow and reluctant. "Okay. But I'm holding you to that, Beyoncé. And if you're lying, I'll find out." She smirked, but her eyes were worried, like she knew there was more. They finished dinner, the tension easing into laughter, but Beyoncé felt the clock ticking. Solange left at 9, promising to check in tomorrow, and Beyoncé locked the door behind her, her heart heavy. She'd bought time, maybe, but Solange was too sharp to stay in the dark long. And Lila was still a question mark, her loyalty fraying with every glance. The real test came later, at a charity gala across town. Beyoncé had almost cancelled, but skipping it would have raised flags, and she couldn't afford more gossip. She wore a black dress, sleek and sharp, her smile a weapon as she worked the room. Lila was there, coordinating with the organizers, but her phone was out too much, her thumbs moving too fast. Beyoncé watched her from across the ballroom, paranoia creeping in. Was she texting about the prenatals? The package? Or was it nothing, just schedules and emails? Then it happened, a near miss that stopped her heart. She was posing for photos, her arm linked with a donor's, when a waiter bumped her, his tray wobbling. A glass of champagne tipped, splashing her dress, and for one horrifying second, she thought it was deliberate, a setup to expose her. She laughed it off, waving away apologies, but her eyes locked on the waiter's, searching for intent. He looked nervous, young, nothing more. Still, she excused herself, slipping into a bathroom to blot the stain, her hands shaking. In the mirror, she saw a woman on the edge, her eyes too wide, her jaw too tight. She splashed water on her face, whispering, "Get it together, Beyoncé." But the gala felt like a minefield now, every smile a potential threat. She rejoined the crowd, her guard up, and that's when she saw him, Marcus, the journalist from Chicago, leaning against a pillar, his notebook gone but his stare just as sharp. He raised a glass to her, a mock toast, and her blood ran cold. Back at the hotel, she found Lila waiting in the lobby, her face pale. "Beyoncé, we've got a problem, she said, her voice low. She held up her phone, showing another gossip post, this one bolder, Beyoncé spotted at mystery clinic, what's she not telling us? No photo, thank God, but the words were enough, tying her to Ellis, to the truth she'd buried. Who's feeding them this, Lila? Beyoncé asked, her voice ice, searching Lila's face for a flinch, a tell. I don't know, Lila said, too quick, her eyes darting away. I'm trying to shut it down, I swear. But her hands were fidgety, her phone still glowing with notifications. Beyoncé nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She turned away, her mind racing. Solange was an ally, maybe, but Lila was a risk. Marcus was circling, and the leaks were getting louder. She needed to move faster, to find the source before it swallowed her whole. Because tonight, in that ballroom, she'd felt it, the shadow wasn't just watching anymore. It was reaching. Episode 8, The Breaking Point. The Los Angeles sunrise was a smear of pink and gold, spilling through the penthouse windows, but Beyoncé barely noticed. She hadn't slept, not really, just drifted in and out of restless dreams where faceless figures held ultrasound photos and whispered her name. The gossip post Lila showed her last night, Beyoncé spotted at mystery clinic, was still trending, racking up likes and theories faster than her team could squash. No proof yet, no photos, but the internet didn't need facts to spin a story. Her secret was a thread pulled loose, and every hour brought it closer to unraveling. She sat on the couch, her knees pulled up, staring at her phone like it might bite. No new texts, no new threats, but the silence felt worse, like a predator holding its breath. Jay-Z was still in New York, or at least she thought so. His texts had dried up after their fight, and she hadn't had the guts to call. The memory of his voice, sharp with hurt, "Don't expect me to wait forever," Beyoncé, cut deeper than the tabloids. She'd pushed him away to protect her secret, but now the distance between them was a chasm, and she wasn't sure how to cross it. Solange's half-truth was holding, barely, but Lila was another story. Her assistant's fidgety hands, that half-seen text, the way she'd dodged Beyoncé's questions, it all screamed trouble. And Marcus, with his smug toast at the gala, was out there somewhere, sniffing for blood. She needed to move, to do something, anything, to keep the walls from closing in. Dr. Ellis was her next step. She'd been dodging him since the clinic, too paranoid to call, but he was the only one who knew the truth, the only one who could tell her if he'd slipped, if he'd let her name leak. She pulled up his number, her thumb hovering, but her body had other plans. A wave of nausea hit, sudden and brutal, sending her sprinting to the bathroom. She barely made it, retching into the sink, her hands gripping the marble until her knuckles ached. Morning sickness, right on cue, like the universe was laughing at her. She rinsed her mouth, avoiding her reflection. She couldn't look at herself, not when she felt like a stranger in her own skin. The prenatals were still in her purse, untouched since Solange's questions. She should have been taking them, Ellis had said so, but every pill felt like admitting this was real, that she was choosing this, whatever this was. She splashed water on her face, whispering, "Pull it together, Beyoncé," but the words sounded hollow, like a song she'd forgotten the tune to. Her phone buzzed in the living room, insistent, dragging her back. It was Lila, texting about a radio interview scheduled for noon. "Need me to push it? You seemed off last night." Beyoncé's jaw tightened. Lila's concern felt like a probe, testing for cracks. She typed back, "Keep it. I'm fine." She couldn't let Lila see her falter, not when she was already questioning her loyalty. But the nausea lingered, a reminder that her body wasn't hers anymore, not entirely. She was halfway through a smoothie, forcing it down, when a sharp pain twisted through her abdomen. Not bad, not yet, but enough to stop her breath. She froze, one hand on her stomach, fear spiking hot and fast. Was this normal? Ellis hadn't mentioned pain, not like this. She grabbed her phone, dialing his number before she could second-guess it. He answered on the second ring, his voice calm, steady, like he'd been expecting her. "Beyoncé," he said, no hesitation, her name a quiet fact. "What's wrong?" She swallowed, her voice shaky. I'm feeling something. Pain, low, like a cramp but worse. Is that bad? Do I need to come in? She hated how small she sounded, how scared, but the pain was still there, a dull pulse now, mocking her control. Could be normal, Ellis said, his tone measured but not dismissive. Early pregnancy can bring discomfort, especially with stress. You've been under a lot, I'm guessing. Any bleeding? No, she said, checking, her hands trembling. Just the pain. And nausea. It's a lot. Okay. Rest, hydrate, no heavy lifting. If it gets worse or you see blood, you come straight to me, no delays. I'm in LA tomorrow, can see you off books. Sound good? He paused, his voice softening. And Beyoncé? You need to take those prenatals. For you, not just the baby. She nodded, forgetting he couldn't see her. Yeah. Thanks, Ellis. But as she hung up, his words stuck, for you, not just the baby. What did he know about her? About any of this? His calm was too perfect, like he'd seen this movie before, and it made her wonder again how he'd known her name, what else he wasn't saying. The pain eased, but her nerves didn't. She was supposed to meet Lila downstairs in an hour, smile for the radio host, act like the world wasn't crumbling. She dressed slowly, choosing a loose blouse, nothing that could hint at the truth. Her purse felt heavier, the ultrasound envelope still inside, a secret she couldn't shake. She was about to leave when a knock came, sharp and unexpected. Her heart jumped. Lila wasn't due yet, and Jay-Z hadn't texted. She crossed to the door, peering through the peephole. A hotel staffer, holding a clipboard, looking bored. She opened the door a crack. Yes? Delivery confirmation, ma'am, the guy said, handing her a slip to sign. Left it with your assistant yesterday, just need your okay. He gestured vaguely, already turning away. Beyoncé frowned, signing fast. What delivery? But he was gone, vanishing down the hall. She shut the door, her mind racing. Another package? Or the same one, the ultrasound, mislogged? She texted Lila, what's this about a delivery? No reply, not yet. Her stomach churned, not from nausea but from dread. The interview was a blur, her answers autopilot, her smile a mask. Lila sat in the booth, watching, her phone out again, thumbs moving. Beyoncé's eyes kept drifting to her, searching for a tell, but Lila was all business, nodding along to the host's praise. Back at the hotel, Beyoncé cornered her in the elevator, done playing nice. Lila, what's with the delivery slip? And don't bullshit me. Lila blinked, caught off guard. Beyoncé, it was just some fan mail, I think. I left it with the desk, didn't open it. Her voice was steady, but her hands fidgeted, clutching her phone too tight. Fan mail, Beyoncé repeated, her voice low, dangerous. You sure about that? She stepped closer, watching Lila's face, waiting for a crack. Swear, Lila said, meeting her eyes, but there was a flicker, a shadow of something unspoken. The elevator dinged, doors opening, and Lila slipped out, muttering about a call. Beyoncé let her go, her blood simmering. Lila was lying, or hiding something, and she was running out of time to figure out which. Back in the suite, she found it, tucked under a stack of towels, like someone had slipped it in while she was gone. A small box, plain brown, her name in Sharpie. Her hands shook as she opened it, half expecting another ultrasound. Instead, it was a single photo, old and creased, her, maybe 20, backstage somewhere, laughing with a man she didn't recognize. Scrawled on the back, in red ink, ask Ellis. Her breath stopped. Ellis. The doctor. The one who knew her name, who'd warned her about secrets. And now this, tying him to her past, to something she couldn't remember. She sank to the floor, the photo trembling in her hands. The pain in her stomach flared again, sharper now, and she curled in on herself, fear swallowing her whole. Lila was hiding something. Jay-Z was gone. The leaks were spreading, and Ellis was more than he seemed. Her secret wasn't just hers anymore, it was a fuse, lit and burning, and she didn't know how much time was left. Episode 9, The Confession. The Los Angeles morning was too bright, the kind of light that exposed every flaw, every shadow. Beyoncé sat cross-legged on the penthouse floor, the old photo from the mysterious box still in her hands, its edges worn soft from her restless fingers. Her younger self laughed in the grainy image, carefree, next to a man whose face sparked no memory but sent a chill through her bones. "Ask Ellis," the red ink scrawled on the back demanded, tying her secret to a past she couldn't grasp. The pain in her stomach had dulled to an ache, but her mind was a storm, swirling with Lila's lies, Jay-Z's silence, and the leaks creeping closer to the truth. She was drowning, and the one lifeline she could reach for Tina felt like a risk she hadn't dared take until now. Her phone sat beside her, Tina's last call unanswered, her mom's voice still echoing in her head. "You can talk to me, Beyoncé." She'd dodged her at the gala, lied to her on the phone, but Tina's warmth, her quiet strength, was the only thing that felt safe in this mess. Solange was too sharp, too ready to dig, Lila was a question mark, Jay-Z was a wound. But Tina? Tina could hold her without breaking her. She needed that now, needed someone to see her before she disappeared under the weight of her own lies. She dialed before she could talk herself out of it, her heart pounding as the line rang. Tina picked up on the first ring, her voice soft, like she'd been waiting. "Beyoncé, baby, I was just thinking about you. You okay?" Beyoncé's throat tightened, tears pricking her eyes. "Mama," she said, her voice cracking, "I'm not okay. I need to see you. Can you come to LA? Like, today?" She hated how desperate she sounded, how small, but the photo, the texts, the pain, it was too much to carry alone. Tina didn't hesitate. "I'm booking a flight now. Be there by noon. You hang tight, you hear me?" Her tone was firm, a mother's promise, and Beyoncé nodded, forgetting Tina couldn't see her. They hung up, and for the first time in days, Beyoncé felt a flicker of relief, like a crack of light in a locked room. But the relief didn't last. Lila texted, "All business, cars ready for the studio at 10. You still want the session?" Beyoncé stared at the message, her jaw tight. The studio was the last place she wanted to be, faking inspiration while her world fell apart, but canceling would raise flags, and Lila was already too curious. "Keep it," she typed back, her fingers heavy. She'd go, play the part, keep the mask on until Tina arrived. Then, maybe, she could breathe. The studio was a cocoon of soundproof walls and blinking lights, usually her sanctuary, but today it felt like a stage she couldn't leave. The producers nodded as she walked in, their smiles eager, oblivious to the storm inside her. Lila lingered by the door, her phone out, thumbs moving again. Beyoncé's eyes narrowed, tracking her, but she forced herself to focus, slipping on headphones and stepping to the mic. The track was a ballad, raw and aching, one she'd written months ago, before the test, before the secrets. Singing it now felt like bleeding, every note pulling at the truth she couldn't say. Halfway through, the nausea hit again, sharp and sudden. She faltered, her voice catching, and waved off the producer's concern. "Just need a sec," she said, slipping out to the bathroom, her hands shaking as she splashed water on her face. The mirror showed a woman fraying at the edges, her eyes too wide, her skin too pale. She gripped the sink, whispering, "You got this, Beyoncé," but the words felt like a lie. Back in the booth, she caught Lila whispering to a sound tech, their heads close, her phone still in hand. Beyoncé's stomach twisted. Was Lila leaking? Or was it paranoia, turning every glance into a betrayal? She finished the session early, claiming a headache, and ducked out before Lila could follow. The car ride back was silent, the city blurring past, her mind stuck on that photo, on Ellis, on what he wasn't telling her. Tina was waiting at the hotel, her suitcase by the door, her arms open before Beyoncé could speak. The hug was a lifeline, warm and steady, and Beyoncé clung to her, tears spilling despite herself. "Mama, I'm so scared," she whispered, the words slipping out, raw and real. Tina pulled back, her hands on Beyoncé's shoulders, her eyes searching. Baby, talk to me. What's got you like this? I've never seen you so shaken. Her voice was gentle but firm, leaving no room for lies. Beyoncé hesitated, the truth clawing at her throat. She couldn't tell her everything, not about the texts, the photo, Ellis, but she needed to give her something, to ease the weight before it crushed her. I'm pregnant, Mama, she said finally, her voice barely audible. I found out a couple weeks ago. I haven't told Jay-Z. I haven't told anyone. I'm not ready. Tina's face softened, her eyes welling up, but she didn't flinch. Oh, Beyoncé, she said, pulling her close again. That's a big thing to carry alone. Why didn't you tell me sooner? There was no judgment, just love, and it broke something open in Beyoncé, a sob she couldn't hold back. I was scared, she said, her words muffled against Tina's shoulder. Of what it means, what people will say. My career, Jai, everything. And now, there's other stuff. I can't explain, but it's bad, Mama. I don't know who to trust. Tina didn't push, just held her, stroking her hair like she did when Beyoncé was a kid. You don't have to figure it all out now, she said. But you can't keep running from it, baby. Jay-Z deserves to know. And you deserve to not be so alone. She paused, her voice dropping. This other stuff, is someone hurting you? Beyoncé pulled back, wiping her eyes, the question too close to the truth. Not like that, she said, dodging. Just pressure. I'll handle it. She couldn't tell Tina about the leaks, the ultrasound, the scrawled note about Ellis. Not yet. But confessing the pregnancy felt like shedding a layer, leaving her raw but lighter. They talked for hours, Tina's presence a bomb, but the photo stayed tucked away, its mystery unsolved. Beyoncé promised to call Jay-Z, to try bridging the gap, but her heart wasn't in it, not with Ellis's name looping in her mind. She needed answers from him, now more than ever. As Tina napped, Beyoncé slipped into the bathroom, dialing Ellis's number, her pulse racing. He answered, his voice calm but guarded. Beyoncé, you okay? The pain worse? No, it's not that, she said, her voice low, urgent. Ellis, who are you? Really? Because I got something today, a picture, and it says to ask you. What do you know about me? About my past? She gripped the phone, waiting for a crack in his calm. He was quiet too long, his breath audible. Beyoncé, I don't know what you're talking about, he said finally, but his tone was off, like he was choosing his words too carefully. But if you're getting threats, you need to be careful. More careful than you've been. Careful, she snapped, her fear turning to anger. Someone's sending me photos, Ellis. Of me, of things. And now your name's in it. You tell me what's going on, or I swear. Beyoncé, he cut in, sharp now, listen to me. Don't do this over the phone. Come to my office tomorrow, alone. We'll talk. But you need to watch your back. Whoever's doing this, they're closer than you think. The line went dead, and Beyoncé stared at the phone, her blood cold. Closer than you think. Lila? Marcus? Someone else, hiding in plain sight? She stepped out, Tina still asleep, the city humming outside, and felt a new jolt of fear. Then, a noise, soft, deliberate, from the hallway. She froze, her hand on the door, and heard it again, a shuffle, like someone waiting just out of sight. Episode 10, The Betrayal. The Los Angeles night was thick with heat, the kind that clung to your skin and made every breath feel heavy. Beyoncé stood frozen in her penthouse suite, her hand still on the door, the soft shuffle from the hallway echoing in her ears. Someone was out there, or had been, and the silence that followed was worse, like the calm before a storm she couldn't see. Tina was asleep on the couch, her soft snores a fragile anchor, but Beyoncé's pulse raced, her mind stuck on Ellis's warning, they're closer than you think. The old photo, her laughing with a stranger, Ask Ellis scrawled in red, sat heavy in her pocket, a puzzle piece that didn't fit but cut deeper with every question. Lila's lies, Jay-Z's distance, the leaks creeping online, it was all closing in, and now this, a sound that felt like proof she wasn't paranoid. She eased the door open, peering into the hallway's dim glow. Empty, just plush carpet and closed doors, but the air felt charged, like someone had just slipped away. She shut the door, locking it twice, her hands trembling. Tina stirred, murmuring, but didn't wake. Beyoncé sank into a chair, her phone dark but taunting, tempting her to call Ellis back, to demand more than his vague warnings. But he'd said to come alone tomorrow, and something in his voice, a crack, a hesitation, made her believe he knew more than he'd let on. About her past, about the photo, about whoever was hunting her. Her confession to Tina had lightened the load, but only just. Saying I'm pregnant out loud had made it real, a truth she couldn't bury, but she'd held back the rest, the texts, the ultrasound, the fear that someone wasn't just watching but playing her like a game. Tina's love was a shield, but it couldn't protect her from this. She needed answers, and she needed to move faster than whoever was pulling the strings. Morning came too soon, the city waking with a hum that grated against her nerves. Tina was up, brewing coffee, her presence a comfort Beyoncé clung to as she dressed for the day. "You sure you're okay, baby?" Tina asked, handing her a mug, her eyes searching. "You were tossing all night." "I'm good, Mama," Beyoncé lied, her smile practiced but thin. "Just gotta hit the studio, keep things moving." She didn't mention Ellis, or the noise in the hall, or the photo burning a hole in her pocket. Tina nodded, but her brow creased, like she knew there was more. Lila was waiting downstairs, her tablet glowing, her smile too bright for Beyoncé's mood. "Beyoncé, car's ready," she said, her voice all business, but her eyes flicked away too fast, like she was hiding something. Beyoncé watched her, every gesture a potential clue. Lila had dodged questions about the delivery, lied about the prenatals, and that text, "Tell her to check," still haunted her. Was Lila leaking? Or was she just a pawn, caught in someone else's game? "Change of plans," Beyoncé said, her tone sharp. "Drop me at a coffee shop downtown. I'll handle my own schedule today." Lila blinked, caught off guard, but nodded, her fingers tightening on her tablet. Beyoncé didn't trust her to know about Ellis's office, not now, not ever. The coffee shop was a detour, a way to shake Lila's eyes and clear her head before facing Ellis. She ordered a decaf, tucked into a corner, and pulled out the photo again, studying the stranger's face. He was tall, blurry, his arms slung around her like they were close, but she couldn't place him. Early Destiny's Child days, maybe? A producer? A friend? The memory was a blank, and that scared her more than the note. What didn't she know about her own past? And why was Ellis tied to it? Her phone buzzed, a new text from an unknown number. "You're asking the wrong questions." Her breath caught, her eyes scanning the shop, but it was just baristas and laptops, no one watching. She deleted it, her hands shaking, but the words stuck, twisting her fear into something sharper. She was about to leave when Lila walked in, her face pale, her tablet gone. "Beyoncé, we need to talk," Lila said, sliding into the booth, her voice low, urgent. "Now." "Alone." She glanced around, like she expected someone to jump out, and Beyoncé's guard went up, her hand closing over the photo in her pocket. "What's this about, Lila?" Beyoncé asked, her tone ice, searching for a lie. "You've been acting shady for days. If you're hiding something, you better come clean." Lila swallowed, her hands fidgeting. "I'm not, okay, look, I messed up, Beyoncé. I didn't mean to, I swear." Her eyes darted to the table, then back up, pleading. "That day with Solange, the pills. I didn't think. But someone asked me about it, after. Someone who knew." Beyoncé's blood ran cold. "Who, Lila? Who knew?" She leaned forward, her voice a blade, every instinct screaming betrayal. Lila hesitated, her breath shaky. "I don't know his name. He called, said he was with the label, asked if you were okay, if you'd been to a doctor." I didn't say anything, I swear, but he already knew about the clinic. I think I confirmed it, accidentally. Her voice cracked, tears welling. I'm so sorry, Beyoncé. Beyoncé stared, her heart pounding, rage mixing with fear. Lila had cracked, let a stranger in, and now the leaks made sense, the clinic rumors, the photos, the texts. You think, she snapped, her voice low, dangerous. Lila, do you know what you've done? You didn't just slip, you sold me out. No, I didn't. Lila's voice rose, then dropped, aware of eyes turning their way. Beyoncé, I'd never hurt you. I was scared, okay? He knew too much, like he was testing me. I've been trying to fix it, to track him, but... Fix it? Beyoncé cut her off, standing, her chair scraping loud. You don't fix this, Lila. You stay out of it. You're done. She grabbed her bag, the photo crinkling in her pocket, and stormed out, leaving Lila's protests behind. Her mind was a blur, betrayal burning hot. Lila wasn't just a risk, she was a leak, a hole in her armor, and Beyoncé couldn't trust her again. Outside, the city roared, but she felt alone, exposed. She hailed a cab, giving Ellis's address, her hands trembling. He was her last shot at answers, but Lila's confession changed everything. Whoever was behind this wasn't guessing, they knew, and they'd used Lila to get closer. The cab ride was a haze, her eyes scanning every car, every face, for Marcus, for anyone who didn't belong. At Ellis's office, she slipped in through a side door, no appointment, no trace. He was waiting, his face grim, like he'd known she'd come. Beyoncé, he said, shutting the door, you look like hell. What happened? She pulled out the photo, slamming it on his desk. This happened, Ellis. You tell me who this is, what you know, right now. Because someone's coming for me, and your name's all over it. Her voice shook, fear and anger spilling out, her secret teetering on the edge. Ellis stared at the photo, his calm cracking, just for a second. Beyoncé, he said, his voice low, you're in deeper than I thought. Sit down. We need to talk. But before he could say more, her phone buzzed, a new message flashing, too late to run now. And outside, a shadow moved past the window, quick and deliberate, gone before she could scream. Episode 11, The Exposure. The air in Dr. Ellis's office was thick, heavy with the weight of unspoken truths. Beyoncé's eyes were locked on the window where the shadow had flickered, her heart slamming against her ribs like a trapped bird. The photo, her younger self, laughing with a stranger, Ask Ellis scrawled in red, lay on his desk, a silent accusation. Her phone burned in her hand, the latest text, too late to run now, searing itself into her mind. Lila's betrayal still stung, a fresh wound, and Jay-Z's absence was a void she couldn't fill. Tina knew about the pregnancy, but not this, not the game someone was playing with her life. Ellis was her last hope for answers, but his grim expression told her she might not like what he had to say. Beyoncé, Ellis said, his voice low, deliberate, you need to sit. Now. He gestured to a chair, his calm fraying at the edges, like he was bracing for a storm. She didn't move, her hand tightening on her phone. No, Ellis. You talk. Tell me who that man is, why your name's on this, why someone's stalking me. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the quiet, but it trembled, betraying the fear she couldn't hide. You knew my name from the start. What else do you know? Ellis sighed, rubbing his temples, and for the first time, he looked old, worn down by whatever he was holding back. I didn't want it to come to this, he said, glancing at the photo, his fingers brushing it like it burned. That man, he was someone you knew a long time ago, Beyoncé. Before the fame, before Jay-Z. His name was Caleb. A producer, small time, worked with Destiny's Child early on. You were close, for a while. Her stomach dropped, the name a blank but heavy, like a stone in her memory. Close how? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't remember him, Ellis. Why don't I remember? Ellis hesitated, his eyes flicking to the door, like he expected someone to burst in. You were young, under pressure. Things got messy, music, egos, life. Caleb was intense. Wanted more than you could give. You cut ties, moved on. But he didn't. He paused, his gaze steady now, holding hers. I knew him because I was his doctor, too. He had issues, Beyoncé. Mental health, obsession. I tried to help, but he vanished years ago. I thought he was gone. Her breath caught, pieces clicking into place, jagged and wrong. You think he's doing this? The photos, the texts. She leaned forward, her hands gripping the desk. Why now, Ellis? What does he want? I don't know, Ellis admitted, his voice tight. But if it's him, he's not playing. You need to go to the police, get security, something. This isn't just about your pregnancy anymore. His eyes softened, but there was fear there, too, like he'd seen this kind of story end badly. The pregnancy. Her secret, now a weapon in someone else's hands. She sank into the chair, her legs weak, the room spinning. I can't, she said, her voice breaking. If I go public, it's over. The press, Jay-Z, everyone, they'll tear me apart before I can explain. She thought of Tina, waiting back at the hotel, of Solange's suspicions, of Lila's slip that started this spiral. I trusted you, Ellis. Was that a mistake? He shook his head, but before he could answer, her phone buzzed again, loud in the quiet. Another text, no number, check the news. You're trending. Her heart stopped. She opened a browser, her fingers clumsy, and there it was, splashed across every gossip site. Beyoncé's clinic visit confirmed, baby on the way? No photos, thank God, but quotes from insiders claiming she'd been seen at a doctor's office, acting secretive, dodging questions. The comments were a flood, speculation, congratulations, hate. She's hiding it from Jay-Z. Career's done. Who's the father? She dropped the phone, her breath shallow, the room tilting. They know, she whispered, more to herself than Ellis. Not everything, but enough. Her secret was cracking, leaking faster than she could patch it, and she felt naked, exposed to a world that loved to feast on her flaws. Ellis stood, crossing to her, his voice urgent. Beyoncé, listen. You can't run from this now. You need to control the story, tell Jay-Z, tell your team. If you don't, whoever's doing this will. He paused, glancing at the photo again. And if it's Caleb, he's not stopping until he gets what he wants. She wanted to scream, to demand what Caleb wanted, but her body betrayed her, a sharp cramp twisted through her abdomen, worse than before, stealing her breath. She doubled over, clutching her stomach, fear spiking hot and fast. Ellis, she gasped, something's wrong. He was at her side in seconds, his hands steady, checking her pulse, his voice calm but tight. Breathe, slow and deep. Any bleeding? She shook her head, tears burning her eyes, and he nodded, helping her to a couch. Stress, probably. You're pushing too hard, Beyoncé. Lie down, rest. I'm getting you water. As he stepped away, her phone lit up again, another headline, Beyoncé cancels studio time, health scare? Her heart sank. Someone was watching her every move, feeding the machine, and she was running out of places to hide. Ellis returned, his face grim, but before he could speak, a crash came from the hallway, glass shattering, loud and deliberate. Beyoncé froze, her eyes meeting his, both of them knowing it wasn't an accident. Stay here, Ellis said, moving to the door, but she was already up, her fear turning to fire. She followed, ignoring his protests, her hand on her phone, ready to call security. The hallway was empty, but a broken vase lay in pieces, water pooling on the floor, and scrawled on the wall in red marker, tell the truth. Her knees buckled, Ellis catching her before she fell, his voice a low murmur, urging her back inside. Back in the office, she sat, trembling, the words branded into her mind. Tell the truth. About the pregnancy? Caleb? Something else, buried in the past she couldn't recall? Ellis locked the door, his face pale. "Beyoncé, you can't stay here," he said. "Go back to your hotel, get Tina, get out of LA until we figure this out." But leaving felt like surrender, like letting whoever this was win. She thought of Jay-Z, of the fight she'd pushed him into, of Tina waiting, trusting her to be strong. The news was out there now, half true, twisting her life into clickbait. She couldn't run, but she couldn't stay silent either. "I'm going public," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Not the whole truth, not yet. But something. To stop the bleeding." Ellis nodded, reluctant but resigned. "Be careful what you say. And who you say it to." His eyes flicked to her phone, like he knew what was coming. She drafted a statement, vague but firm. "I'm taking time for my health, grateful for your support. More soon." Her team would polish it, spin it, but it bought her space, a shield against the leaks. She sent it to her publicist, her hands shaking, knowing it wouldn't be enough. Not for Jay-Z, not for whoever was writing on walls. As she left Ellis's office, the city felt different, hostile, every shadow a threat. She called Tina, her voice calm despite the fear. "Mama, pack up. We're leaving tonight." But as she hung up, a new text flashed. "Nice try. It's not over." And somewhere, in the crowd beyond the office, she swore she saw Marcus, his smirk sharp, gone before she could be sure. Episode 12, The Collapse. The Los Angeles streets blurred past the SUV's tinted windows, a kaleidoscope of neon and shadow that did nothing to calm Beyoncé's racing heart. Tina sat beside her, silent but steady, her hand resting on Beyoncé's like an anchor. The statement she'd sent out, "taking time for my health," was already rippling online, trending with hashtags and theories, some kind, some vicious. It was a band-aid on a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding, and the latest text, "Nice try. It's not over," burned in her mind, proof that her half-truth hadn't slowed whoever was after her. Marcus's smirk outside Ellis's office lingered, too, a taunt she couldn't shake. Her secret was spilling, her marriage was fracturing, and now Caleb, a name from a past she couldn't recall, was a ghost tying it all together. She told Tina they were heading to a safe house, a quiet spot outside the city her team kept for emergencies. No Lila, no leaks, just her and her mom until she could think straight. Tina hadn't pushed, but her eyes were heavy with worry, catching every flinch Beyoncé tried to hide. The pregnancy, the only truth she'd shared, sat between them, fragile and unspoken since their talk. Beyoncé's hand drifted to her stomach, the faint ache still there, a reminder of how little control she had left. Her phone stayed off, a brick in her purse, but she felt its pull, tempting her to check for Jay-Z's response, for more threats, for Marcus's byline on some damning scoop. Jay-Z didn't know about the statement, didn't know about the pregnancy, didn't know she was running. Their fight, "You're acting like I'm the enemy," played on loop, her a weight she carried alongside her fear. She'd call him soon, she told herself, when she was safe, when she had answers. But the truth was, she was scared to hear his voice, scared of what he'd say when he learned how much she'd hidden. The safe house was a low-slung bungalow, tucked in a canyon where the city's hum faded to crickets and wind. Beyoncé's security swept it first, their radios crackling as she and Tina waited in the car. "You sure about this, baby?" Tina asked, her voice soft, breaking the silence. "Running don't feel like you." "It's not running, Mama," Beyoncé said, her tone sharper than she meant. "It's surviving. Just for now." But the words felt hollow, like she was trying to convince herself more than Tina. She wasn't surviving, she was stalling, waiting for the collapse she could feel coming. Inside, the house was sparse, all neutral walls and generic art, like it was built to be forgotten. Beyoncé paced the living room, her sneakers soft against the hardwood, while Tina unpacked groceries, humming to fill the quiet. Beyoncé's mind was elsewhere, on Ellis, on Caleb, on Lila's tearful confession. He already knew about the clinic. Someone had played Lila, and now they were playing her, dropping clues like breadcrumbs to a truth she wasn't ready to face. She was about to call Ellis, to demand more about Caleb, when Tina's phone rang, loud in the stillness. Tina glanced at it, her face tightening. "It's Solange," she said, answering before Beyoncé could stop her. "Hey, baby, slow down, what's wrong?" Beyoncé froze, her pulse spiking. Solange's voice was a muffled buzz, too fast, too urgent. Tina's eyes flicked to her, worried, and Beyoncé's stomach dropped. "Mama, what is it?" she asked, stepping closer, her voice low. Tina held up a hand, listening, then covered the phone. "She's at your hotel, Beyoncé. Says she found something in your suite, something you need to see. She's freaking out." Tina's voice was calm, but her grip on the phone was tight, like she was bracing for worse. Beyoncé's mind raced. Solange, digging again, too stubborn to stay out of it. "Tell her to leave it, Mama. I'll handle it when I'm back." But her voice shook, fear creeping in. What had Solange found? The ultrasound? Another photo? Something worse? Tina relayed the message, but Solange wasn't having it, her voice spiked, audible now, insistent. Tina sighed, handing Beyoncé the phone. "She won't listen to me." "Talk to her." Beyoncé took it, her hand unsteady. "Solange, what are you doing?" she said, her voice sharp, trying to keep control. "I told you I'm fine. Leave it alone." "Beyoncé, no," Solange snapped, her tone fierce, frayed. "I'm in your room, okay? I was checking on you, and I found stuff. Papers, weird ones, hidden in a drawer. They've got your name, some doctor's name, and dates, old ones, like before you blew up. What the hell's going on?" Beyoncé's blood ran cold. Papers. Ellis? Caleb? Her past, spilling out like poison. "Solange, listen," she said, forcing calm she didn't feel. "Put it back. Don't touch anything. I'll explain, but not now. Please, just go." Solange hesitated, her breath heavy. "Beyoncé, you're scaring me. This ain't just about you being pregnant, is it? I'm not stupid." Her voice softened, pleading. "Let me help." "I can't," Beyoncé said, her throat tight, tears burning. "Not yet. Just trust me, Solange." She hung up before her sister could argue, her hands shaking as she handed the phone back to Tina. "She's gonna keep digging," she said, more to herself than her mom. "And she's gonna find something." Tina's face was grim, but she didn't push, just squeezed Beyoncé's shoulder. "You'll figure it out, baby. You always do." But her voice lacked conviction, like she felt the collapse coming, too. Beyoncé tried to focus, to plan, but her body had other ideas. The ache in her stomach flared, sharper now, and a wave of dizziness hit, sending her to the couch. Tina was at her side in seconds, her hands cool on Beyoncé's forehead. "Beyoncé, you're pale as a ghost. What's happening?" "Just tired," Beyoncé lied, but her voice was weak, her vision blurring. She thought of Ellis, his warning about stress, about the baby. Was this her fault, pushing too hard, hiding too much? She closed her eyes, willing the pain away, but it lingered, a quiet threat. Her phone, still off, felt like a bomb in her purse. She needed to check it, to see if Jay-Z had seen the statement, if Marcus had published more, if the shadow had texted again. But turning it on meant facing the world, and she wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, she let Tina fuss, bringing water, a blanket, her mom's love a fleeting shield against the chaos. Hours later, as Tina dozed, Beyoncé slipped outside, needing air, needing space. The canyon was dark, stars sharp overhead, but the quiet didn't soothe her. She felt watched, exposed, like the trees themselves were whispering her secrets. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, she'd turned it on, just for a second, to check for Jay-Z. No messages from him, but a new one from an unknown number. You can't hide from the past. Attached was a link. She clicked, her heart pounding, and a blog loaded, unsigned but vicious. Beyoncé's lies unravel, what's she keeping from Jay-Z? It mentioned the clinic, her health scare, and hinted at old ties resurfacing, with dates matching the papers Solange found. No proof, but enough to twist the knife. The comments were worse, fans turning, trolls gloating, her life a spectacle. She dropped the phone, her breath ragged, the collapse here at last. Solange was digging, Lila was cracked, Ellis was hiding something, and Jay-Z was a ghost. Her secret wasn't hers anymore, it was everybody's, and as she stood in the dark, a rustle came from the trees, close and deliberate, like someone waiting for her to break. Episode 13, The Reckoning. The canyon air was cool, sharp with the scent of pine, but Beyoncé felt no relief as she stood outside the safe house, the rustle in the trees still echoing in her ears. Her phone lay in the dirt where she'd dropped it, the blog post's words, Beyoncé's lies unravel, branding themselves into her mind. The pregnancy, her past, Caleb's ghost, all of it was spilling out, no longer hers to control. Solange's discovery of those papers, Lila's betrayal, Ellis's half-truths about a man she couldn't remember, it was a house of cards, and the wind was blowing hard. Tina was inside, sleeping, unaware of the latest blow, but Beyoncé couldn't hide forever. Jay-Z deserved the truth, and she was done running from it. She picked up the phone, her hands trembling, and wiped the screen clean. No new texts, no shadows moving in the dark, but the silence felt like a trap, like whoever was behind this was waiting for her next move. She thought of Jay-Z, his hurt silence after their fight, his words, "You're acting like I'm the enemy," cutting deeper than any leak. She'd pushed him away to protect her secret, but it had only made things worse, leaving her alone when she needed him most. Her finger hovered over his name, fear and love twisting together, but she pressed call before she could back out. He answered on the third ring, his voice rough, like he'd been up all night, too. "Beyoncé," he said, no warmth, just her name, heavy with everything they hadn't said. "You finally ready to talk?" Her throat tightened, tears burning. "Jai," she whispered, her voice cracking, "I'm sorry. I've messed up. I need you to hear me out, please." She sank onto a bench outside the house, the night pressing in, her words spilling fast, like if she stopped, she'd lose him for good. There was a pause, too long, and she braced for him to hang up. "Aight," he said finally, softer but guarded. "I'm listening, bae. But you better give me something real this time." She took a breath, the truth clawing its way out. "I'm pregnant, Jai. Found out a couple weeks ago. I didn't tell you because I was scared. Scared it'd change everything, us, my career, the world. And now it's all falling apart, and I don't know how to fix it." Her voice broke, tears spilling now, the weight of her secret finally shared, raw and jagged. He was quiet, his breath audible, processing. "Pregnant," he repeated, like he was testing the word. "And you didn't tell me? Beyoncé, we're supposed to be a team. Why'd you shut me out?" His voice was low, hurt, but there was something else, relief, maybe, that she'd finally let him in. "I thought I was protecting you," she said, her hands gripping the bench, the wood rough under her fingers. "But it's more than that, Jai. Someone knows. They're sending me things, photos, texts, stuff about my past. They're leaking it, piece by piece, and I don't know who to trust anymore." She didn't mention Caleb, not yet, not until she understood what Ellis was hiding. Jay-Z's tone shifted, sharper now, protective. "Somebody's messing with you? Bae, why didn't you say this sooner? I'd have been there, you know that." He paused, his voice softening. "A baby, though, that's big, Beyoncé. That's us. You really think I'd let anything ruin that?" Her chest ached, love and guilt tangling together. "I didn't know what you'd think," she admitted. "And I was wrong, Jai. I should have told you from the start. Can you come here? I'm at a safe house, with Mama. I need you." "I'm on the next flight," he said, no hesitation. "Text me the address. And bae? We're figuring this out together. No more secrets, aight?" His voice was firm, a promise, and she nodded, tears streaming, knowing he couldn't see her. They hung up, and she sat there, the night still, her heart lighter but not free. Telling Jay-Z was a start, but the shadow was still out there, and Solange's find, those papers, meant her past was catching up faster than she could run. She needed to talk to Ellis again, to press him on Caleb, on what he wasn't saying. But first, she needed to face her sister. Back inside, Tina was awake, stirring a mug of tea, her eyes sharp with worry. "Beyoncé, you look like you've seen a ghost," she said, setting the mug down. "What's going on? And don't tell me it's nothing." Beyoncé sank onto a chair, her hands twisting together. "I called Jay-Z, Mama. Told him about the baby. He's coming." She paused, the rest harder to say. "But Solange, she found something at the hotel. Papers, old stuff, tied to me and some doctor. I don't know what it means, but it's bad." Tina's face tightened, her mom's intuition kicking in. "Solange's always been too curious for her own good," she said, but her voice was gentle, steadying. "You want me to call her, get her here? We can sort this out, all of us." Beyoncé nodded, grateful but dreading it. "Yeah. She needs to know, some of it. Not everything, not yet." She couldn't tell them about Caleb, not until Ellis gave her more. But keeping Solange close might stop her from digging deeper, from stumbling into something dangerous. Tina made the call, her voice low, coaxing Solange to come without spilling too much. Beyoncé listened, her mind drifting to the blog post, to Marcus's smirk, to the rustle outside. Whoever was doing this, Caleb or someone else, they were close, too close, and her statement hadn't stopped them. She needed to act, to take control before the next leak hit. Solange arrived an hour later, her energy a storm, her bag slung over her shoulder like she was ready for war. "Beyoncé, what the hell?" she said, dropping the bag, her eyes blazing. "You've got me finding secret papers, running from hotels, and now you're holed up here? Tell me what's going on, now." Beyoncé stood, her voice calm but firm. "Solange, sit. I'll tell you what I can." She glanced at Tina, drawing strength from her nod, and gave her sister a version of the truth, the pregnancy, the stress, the leaks. Not Caleb, not the photos, not Ellis's warnings. Solange listened, her face softening, but her questions were sharp, pushing for more. "You're not telling me everything," Solange said, leaning forward, her braids swinging. "Those papers, Beyoncé, they mention some guy, old dates, like it's tied to you before us, before Destiny's Child. Who's Caleb?" Beyoncé froze, her breath catching. Solange had read more than she'd thought, and the name hung in the air, a bomb waiting to go off. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed, loud and insistent, a new message from an unknown number. "You told him. Now it's my turn." Her hands shook as she opened it, a photo loading slow, a grainy shot of her and Jay-Z, years ago, laughing, but his face was scratched out, red ink circling hers. Tina saw her face, reached for her. "Beyoncé, what is it?" she asked, her voice urgent, but Beyoncé couldn't speak, the room spinning, her secret no longer just hers but a weapon aimed at everyone she loved. Episode 14, The Choice. The safe house was too quiet, the kind of stillness that amplified every creak, every whisper of wind outside. Beyoncé sat at the kitchen table, the photo from the latest text, her and Jay-Z, his face scratched out, red ink circling hers, clutched in her trembling hands. "You told him. Now it's my turn." The words looped in her mind, a threat that felt personal, vicious, like whoever was behind this wasn't just after her secret but her life, her love, her future. Solange's question, "Who's Caleb?" hung unanswered, her sister's eyes boring into her, while Tina's worry filled the room like a fog. Jay-Z was on his way, carrying the truth she'd finally shared, but the weight of Caleb's shadow, Ellis's half-answers, and the leaks tearing her apart made her feel like she was standing on a crumbling ledge. "Beyoncé," Solange said, her voice sharp, cutting through the haze, "you gonna tell me what that is, or do I have to keep guessing?" She nodded at the phone, her arms crossed, her patience fraying. "Because I'm done with half-stories. You're in trouble, and I'm not sitting here blind." Beyoncé's throat tightened, her fingers curling around the photo. She wanted to tell Solange everything, Caleb, the old picture, Ellis's warning, but the truth was a minefield, and one wrong step could blow it all up. Tina reached for her hand, her touch warm, grounding, but even that couldn't stop the panic clawing at her chest. "Solange," she said, her voice low, shaky, "I can't, not yet. It's not just about me anymore. I need you to trust me, please." Solange's jaw clenched, but Tina cut in, her voice soft but firm. "Solange, give her room. She's carrying enough." She squeezed Beyoncé's hand, her eyes steady. "But baby, you gotta make a choice soon. You can't keep running from this, whatever it is." A choice. Beyoncé knew what Tina meant: tell the whole truth, to Jay-Z, to Solange, to the world, or keep hiding, hoping she could outrun the shadow. But every choice felt like a trap. Go public, and the pregnancy, Caleb, her past would be dissected by strangers. Stay silent, and the leaks would do it for her, twisting her life into lies. She thought of the baby, the faint ache in her stomach, the life she hadn't chosen but couldn't let go. She thought of Jay-Z, his promise to be here, to fight with her. She couldn't lose him, not now, not when she'd just let him in. Her phone buzzed, a new call, and she flinched, expecting another taunt. It was her publicist, voice tight with urgency. "Beyoncé, we've got a problem. Marcus just dropped a piece, claims he's got sources on your clinic visits, says you're hiding something from Jay-Z. No hard proof, but it's gaining traction. We need a response, fast." Beyoncé's heart sank, Marcus's smirk flashing in her mind, his pen sharper than any knife. "Stall it," she said, her voice flat, hiding the fear. "I'll call you back." She hung up, her hands shaking, the room spinning. Marcus was closing in, and whether he was Caleb or just a vulture, he was feeding the fire. She needed Ellis, needed to know what Caleb wanted, why her past was worth this war. "I have to go," she said, standing, her voice steadier than she felt. "Mama, Solange, stay here. Jay-Z's coming, and I'll be back before he lands. I need to see someone, get answers." She grabbed her purse, the old photo of Caleb still inside, her only clue. Solange was on her feet, blocking the door. "Beyoncé, no. You're not running off alone, not after all this. Who's this someone? That doctor? Tell me, or I'm coming with you." Her eyes blazed, protective, stubborn, the sister who'd never let her fall. Beyoncé hesitated, torn. Solange deserved more, but dragging her into this, into Caleb's shadow, Ellis's secrets, was too dangerous. "It's the doctor, okay," she said, giving her just enough. "I need to know something, Solange, and he's the only one who can tell me. Stay with Mama. Please." Solange's face softened, but her voice was steel. "You better come back, Beyoncé. And you better start talking." She stepped aside, reluctant, and Beyoncé slipped out, the night swallowing her as she climbed into the waiting car. Ellis's office was an hour away, a risk she had to take. The drive was a blur, her driver silent, her mind racing. She texted Jay-Z the address of the safe house, her fingers trembling. "I'm handling something. Be with Mama and Solange. I love you." No reply, not yet, but she felt him, his strength, even from miles away. At the clinic, Ellis was waiting, his face drawn, like he'd been expecting her. "Beyoncé," he said, locking the door behind her, "you shouldn't be here. It's not safe." "Safe," she snapped, pulling out the Caleb photo, slamming it down. "You tell me about him, Ellis, all of it. Because someone's ruining my life, and you're in it up to your neck." Her voice shook, fear and fury spilling out, the pregnancy a pulse she couldn't ignore. Ellis stared at the photo, his calm cracking. "Caleb was troubled," he said, his voice low, careful. "He loved you, Beyoncé, in his way. When you cut him off, he spiraled. I tried to help, but he disappeared. I don't know if it's him now, but there's something you need to see." He pulled a file from a drawer, old and yellowed, and slid it toward her. She opened it, her hands unsteady, and froze. Letters, handwritten, addressed to her, from Caleb, dated years ago. "You'll never forget me. We're tied, always. Her stomach churned, the words too close to the texts, to the red ink. Why do you have these? She asked, her voice barely audible. Why didn't you tell me? I thought he was gone, Ellis said, his eyes haunted. I kept them in case he came back. Beyoncé, if he's alive, he's dangerous. You need to. A crash cut him off, loud, from the back of the clinic. Glass shattering, footsteps, deliberate. Beyoncé's heart stopped, her eyes meeting Ellis's, both of them knowing they weren't alone. He grabbed her arm, pulling her toward a side exit, but her phone buzzed, a new text flashing, no more doctors. Just us now. She stumbled, fear choking her, but Ellis pushed her forward, his voice urgent. Go, Beyoncé. Get to Jay-Z, tell him everything. I'll handle this. She ran, the night cold against her skin, the clinic fading behind her, but the footsteps followed, closer, and she knew her choice was made. She'd fight, for her baby, for Jay-Z, for herself, but first, she had to survive. Episode 15, The Truth. The night air stung Beyoncé's lungs as she stumbled out of Ellis's clinic, her sneakers pounding the pavement, the echo of those footsteps, too close, too deliberate, chasing her into the dark. Her phone was a dead weight in her hand, the latest text, no more doctors. Just us now, a knife twisting in her gut. Caleb's letters, his words from years ago, were tied, always, blurred with the present, making her question everything she thought she knew about herself. Jay-Z was on his way to the safe house, Tina and Solange waiting, but the truth she'd kept buried was clawing its way out, and she wasn't sure she could outrun it anymore. The baby, her secret, her past, it was all one thread, and someone was pulling it apart. She ducked into an alley, her breath ragged, pressing herself against a brick wall to listen. The footsteps had stopped, or maybe she'd lost them, but the silence was worse, like a hunter pausing to aim. Her driver was parked a block away, per her orders to stay discreet, but every shadow felt like Caleb, or Marcus, or someone new, someone worse. She texted Jay-Z, her fingers shaking, I'm okay, but I need you. Hurry. No reply, not yet, but she clung to the hope of him, his strength, the love she'd almost lost by hiding too long. Her mind spun back to Ellis, his face pale as he'd pushed her out the door, promising to handle whatever was crashing through his clinic. Those letters, hidden for years, were proof he'd known more than he'd said, proof Caleb wasn't just a ghost but a wound she'd forgotten. She'd been so young, barely 20, when Destiny's Child was clawing its way up, the world a blur of studios and dreams. Caleb, a producer, charming at first, then clingy, intense, she remembered flashes now, his voice too loud, his hands too tight, until she'd walked away, thinking it was over. But it wasn't. He'd been waiting, and now he was here, or someone was, using her past to unravel her present. She forced herself to move, slipping toward the car, her eyes scanning every corner. The driver saw her, starting the engine, and she dove in, locking the doors. Go, she said, her voice hoarse. Safe house, now. He nodded, pulling away, the city a streak of lights that did nothing to calm her. She checked her phone again, no texts, no calls, just the weight of what she hadn't said. Solange knew too much, Tina not enough, and Jay-Z was carrying half the truth, the pregnancy but not the danger. She needed to tell them, all of them, before the shadow did it for her. Back at the safe house, the bungalow's lights glowed soft, a false promise of safety. Tina was in the kitchen, stirring tea, her face etched with worry. Solange paced the living room, her energy a live wire, papers from Beyoncé's hotel suite spread on the coffee table, dates, names, Caleb's scrawl. Beyoncé, Solange said, spinning as she walked in, where the hell were you? We're sitting here, freaking out, and you're off playing detective? Beyoncé's chest tightened, Solange's anger a mirror of her own fear. I had to, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. I needed answers, Solange. About him. She nodded at the papers, Caleb's name a stain she couldn't ignore. Tina stepped closer, her hands on her hips. Baby, you're scaring us, she said, her voice low, urgent. Who's this Caleb? What's he got to do with you running around in the dark? Her eyes searched Beyoncé's, pleading for the truth. Beyoncé sank onto the couch, her body heavy, the weight of it all too much. He was someone I knew, she said, her voice cracking, the words spilling slow, careful. A long time ago, when I was starting out. He got too close, wanted more than I could give. I cut him off, thought he was gone. But he's not. Or someone's using him to get to me. She pulled out the latest photo, Jay-Z's face scratched out, and laid it on the table, her hands shaking. This came tonight. They know I told Jai about the baby. They're not stopping. Solange's eyes widened, her hand grabbing the photo. Beyoncé, this is crazy, she said, her voice sharp, scared. You're saying some creep from forever ago is stalking you? Why? And what's with the doctor keeping his letters? She waved at the papers, her fear turning to fury. I don't know, Beyoncé admitted, tears burning her eyes. Ellis says Caleb was troubled, obsessive. He had those letters, kept them in case Caleb came back. But there's more, something I'm missing. She looked at Tina, her anchor. Mama, I'm trying to protect you, all of you, but I'm losing it. Tina sat beside her, pulling her close, her voice fierce. You don't protect us by shutting us out, Beyoncé. We're family. Whatever this is, we face it together. She glanced at Solange, nodding, a silent command to stand down. Solange softened, sinking onto the couch, her hand on Beyoncé's knee. Okay, she said, her voice quieter now, but you gotta stop running alone, Beyoncé. I'm here. We all are. She paused, her eyes flicking to the papers. I dug into those, by the way. Found a name tied to Caleb, some old music exec, went dark years ago. Could be nothing, but I'm not letting it go. Beyoncé's heart sank, Solange's stubbornness a blessing and a curse. Be careful, Solange, she said, her voice urgent. Whoever's doing this, they're watching. They know too much. She thought of Lila, her betrayal a crack that let this flood in, and Marcus, his articles fanning the flames. Were they connected, or just vultures circling the same prey? The door opened, and Jay-Z walked in, his face tired but fierce, his eyes locking on Beyoncé's like nothing else existed. Bae, he said, crossing the room in 3 steps, pulling her into his arms. You scared the hell out of me. What's going on? His voice was rough, love and worry tangled together, and she clung to him, tears spilling, the truth pouring out. I told you about the baby, she said, her voice muffled against his chest, but there's more. Someone's after me, Jai. Old stuff, from before us. They're sending threats, leaking lies. I don't know how to stop it. She pulled back, showing him the photo, the scratched-out face, her own circled in red. This came tonight. I'm so sorry I kept you out. Jay-Z's jaw tightened, his hand gripping the photo, his eyes blazing. Nobody touches you, Beyoncé, he said, his voice low, dangerous. Not like this. We're shutting this down, together. You, me, all of us. He looked at Tina, Solange, his nod a vow. But as they planned, security, lawyers, a trace on the texts, Beyoncé's phone buzzed, a final message, no number, you can't save everyone. Her breath caught, her eyes meeting Jay-Z's, and in that moment, she knew the truth wasn't just hers anymore. It was theirs, and it was a fight she couldn't win alone. But the shadow was still out there, waiting, and she wasn't sure they were ready for what came next. Episode 16, The Aftermath. The safe house felt smaller with everyone there, the air thick with tension and unspoken fears. Beyoncé sat on the couch, Jay-Z's arm around her, his warmth a lifeline after weeks of running from the truth. Tina was in the kitchen, brewing coffee to keep her hands busy, while Solange paced, her eyes darting to the papers on the table, Caleb's letters, her notes, a map of a past that refused to stay buried. The latest text, you can't save everyone, hung over them like a storm cloud, its threat vague but sharp, cutting deeper because of who was in the room. Her family, her heart, all here, all at risk because of a secret she tried to keep alone. The pregnancy was out now, shared with the people who mattered, but Caleb's shadow, Ellis's warnings, and the leaks tearing through her life were far from resolved. JZ's grip tightened, his voice low, steady. "Beyoncé, we got this," he said, his eyes locked on hers, fierce with love. "Whoever's out there, they don't know us. We don't break." He glanced at Tina, Solange, his nod pulling them in, a team forged in the fire of her confession. She wanted to believe him, to let his strength carry her, but the fear lingered, a cold knot in her chest. "Jai," she said, her voice soft, raw, "I thought I could handle it, keep it from touching you. But it's bigger than me now. Those texts, that photo, they're not just about the baby. It's like they want to take everything." Her hand rested on her stomach, the faint ache a reminder of what she was fighting for. Solange stopped pacing, her hands on her hips. "Beyoncé, we need to move," she said, her voice sharp, urgent. "This Caleb guy, or whoever's hiding behind him, they're playing games, but we're not. I've got a lead, some old contact who knew him back then. Let me dig, see what sticks." Her eyes blazed, stubborn and protective, but Beyoncé saw the worry beneath, the sister who'd fight but feared losing her. "Solange, no," Beyoncé said, standing, her voice firm despite the tremble. "You digging got us those papers, yeah, but it's dangerous. You saw that text. They know who's around me. I can't lose you." Her eyes flicked to Tina, to Jay-Z, the weight of everyone crushing her. Tina stepped forward, her coffee mug forgotten, her voice calm but unyielding. "Baby, Solange's right about one thing, we can't just wait," she said, her eyes soft but fierce. "But you don't send her out alone. We do this smart, together. Call that doctor again, Beyoncé. He knows more than he's saying, and we need it all." Beyoncé nodded, Tina's words cutting through the fog. Ellis was a loose end, his letters proof he'd hidden Caleb's truth too long. She dialed his number, her pulse racing, but it went to voicemail, his calm voice promising to call back. She didn't trust it, not after the crash at his clinic, the shadow that chased her out. "He's not answering," she said, her voice tight, fear creeping back. "What if they got to him, Jai?" Jay-Z's jaw clenched, his hand finding hers. "Then we find him," he said, his tone leaving no room for doubt. "But first, we lock this down, security, no more leaks, no more running. You're not alone anymore, bae." He pulled her close, his lips brushing her forehead, and for a moment, she let herself believe it, let his love hold the pieces together. They spent the morning planning, a war room of family and resolve. Jay-Z called his team, tightening their circle, while Tina kept Solange from bolting to chase her lead. Beyoncé watched, her heart full but heavy, knowing this was only the start. The pregnancy was hers now, theirs, a choice she'd made to keep, to fight for, but Caleb, or whoever was wielding his name, was still out there, and Marcus's articles kept the world guessing, each one a jab at her armor. By noon, a new headline hit, softer this time, Beyoncé steps back for family, fans rally. Her statement had worked, some, shifting the narrative to love, to hope, but the comments still stung, what's she hiding? Jay-Z deserves better. She ignored them, focusing on Jay-Z's hand in hers, on Tina's quiet strength, on Solange's fire. They were her truth, stronger than any leak. But the shadow didn't rest. Her phone buzzed as they ate lunch, a simple spread Tina insisted on, grounding them in normalcy. "No number, just a message. You think you're safe? Look closer." Attached was a photo, grainy but clear, Lila, leaving a coffee shop, her face pale, a man behind her, too blurry to name. Beyoncé's breath caught, guilt mixing with fear. Lila, her betrayer, but also her friend, caught in the same web. Was she a victim now, or still a pawn? "Jai," she said, showing him the phone, her voice shaking, "Lila's in trouble. Or she's part of it. I don't know anymore." Her eyes met his, pleading for clarity she couldn't find. He studied the photo, his face hard. "We'll find her, Beyoncé," he said, his voice steady. "But we don't trust her, not yet. Whoever's doing this, they're trying to shake you, keep you guessing. Don't let him." He squeezed her hand, grounding her, but the doubt lingered, a splinter she couldn't pull. Solange snatched the phone, her eyes narrowing. "This guy in the back," she said, zooming in, "he looks like that exec I found, the one tied to Caleb. I'm telling you, Beyoncé, let me check it out." Her voice was fierce, but Beyoncé saw the fear, the need to protect her sister warring with her instinct to fight. "No," Beyoncé said, her voice rising, final. "We stay together, Solange. No chasing shadows, not after last night." She looked at Tina, at Jay-Z, her family, a circle she wouldn't break. "We find Ellis, we get the truth, and we end this. But we do it my way." They agreed, reluctant but united, and as the day faded, Beyoncé felt a shift, not peace, not yet, but purpose. The baby was real, her love was real, and she'd fight for both, no matter what Caleb's ghost threw at her. Jay-Z stayed close, his presence a promise, and Tina's prayers filled the quiet, a soft hum of hope. But as night fell, a new text came, just 3 words, "I'm still here." No photo, no clue, just a reminder that the shadow hadn't gone, that Ellis's silence might mean more than she knew. She showed Jay-Z, her hand steady now, her fear tempered by resolve. "Let him come," she said, her voice low, fierce. "I'm ready." The safe house glowed against the dark, a beacon for her family, for her fight. The truth was out, or close enough, and she'd rebuild, piece by piece. But Ellis's warning lingered, a question unanswered, and as she leaned into Jay-Z, she knew the story wasn't over, just paused, waiting for the next move. Thank you for listening to this incredible story. Our team would really appreciate it if you give us a like and comment. Your opinion is very important to us. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed. See you soon.